Happy midnight, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm Johnny, and I am joined as always by best buds, Colin.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yo, bro. And Keaton. Yo, dude.
Yo, Johnny, what's up?
Gentlemen, here we are again talking about the games that we've been playing recently, and we have some very, very exciting games to talk about today. I'm giddy with excitement, and I hope you guys are too. Thank you, everyone out there, for listening and tuning in again. We're going to kick this thing off just unpacking the state of play that just happened recently. It wasn't necessarily a big affair, but I do think it was largely a boring affair. So why don't we talk about that a little bit? Guys, any general impressions about the state of play that we just got?
Meh. That's my kind of general impression.
Yeah.
It was 20 minutes of, I don't know, updates to things we've seen. There were a couple things that were interesting, but for the most part, it was very forgettable. I had to watch through it again just to like write down the list of what things came out of it because I couldn't remember.
Certainly no bangers. Bangers.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga Collection, that's kind of a banger. I mean, it's
really
a release
cool.
of old games.
It is cool.
It is cool though.
But
it's like a
specifically
dozen old
all of them,
games.
right? Is it 12 of them? I briefly looked at
Something
that list,
like that. It's a
and
lot.
it was like, it's just like, do you want to play a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game? And they were just all there, which, I love when they do old stuff like that.
For sure. And actually, like, I do quite enjoy those titles. Oddly enough, as not a huge beat 'em up fan, I kind of love those titles. I have a huge amount of nostalgia for it. So like the fact that this is even getting some attention in 2022 is neat. I wonder if this is in anticipation of Shredder's Revenge, which is an exciting title that is forthcoming. I wonder if they're trying to, get people excited about this IP again. I don't know.
Who's the dev on the new one?
Not positive. I can have that info in just a second.
I'm not sure if it's still Konami or whatever.
Is that a whole new beat 'em up?
Tribute Games. Yeah, Tribute Games.
Oh, that's a nobody, right?
Panzer Paladin, Mercenary Kings.
Nope.
Curses and Chaos.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything that sterling here, but I think at least in the promotional material for Shredder's Revenge, people were seriously applauding, myself included, that it does feel like a true return to form of those games, of the arcade TMNT titles.
For sure.
So I wonder if the Cowabunga collection or whatever the fuck it's called is playing with that energy and just trying to, get the ball rolling. Not positive. I don't know if I would categorize that as a banger. I think it's really, really neat. But like this to me, just in general, the state of play was just kind of like, here's just some things. This isn't, God of War Ragnarok. This isn't another Uncharted game or something like that, or the next Naughty Dog. Here's just some things we're working on. So don't expect much.
So Square Enix continues to kind of kill it, though. People were furious about the lack of Final Fantasy 16 and Remake 2 updates.
Yeah, certainly.
But they're doing a new Valkyrie profile game.
Yeah.
Which is fucking incredible. That's another of the cult classic style Square Enix games, Squaresoft games. So what's bizarre about this one too, the game is like a turn-based, somewhat non-traditional system, but it's they're going full action in the new one, which also seems like a bizarre decision.
So they changed up the title from Valkyrie Profile to what, Valkyrie Elysium?
I don't know if that's supposed to signify that, or I think it's just like the modern times. Square Enix is convinced that people hate turn-based games anymore.
Yeah. Colin, you have experience with this series, largely speaking?
I have about 10 hours in Valkyrie Profile. I have never finished it, but it's a game that's been on my to playlist for a decade now. Yeah. And I'll eventually get to it. But I just love that they keep doing a good service to their IPs, instead of Silent Hill doing it with Konami.
Certainly.
Oh, we're talking about Valkyrie Profile. I'm thinking of Valkyria Chronicles. I was like, you have a ton of experience with this series. Right. Totally different series.
Yeah. Yep. So this is their PS1 games. Actually, and then the sequel came out on PS2. But it's been that long since they've done a new Valkyrie game. Oh, it's been that long.
Okay. Wow. I don't think I actually appreciated how long that's been. So, I wonder if there are hardcore fans out there that are kind of, stoked about Elysium's announcement. I don't know.
think so. The other issue they said with it is apparently it looks like garbage. I haven't even watched the trailer,
you can
but it
see
looks
the
like
budget.
garbage.
You can see the budget.
Bizarre.
Really bad faces.
I do have a meta critique of the state of play, of how awful the internet can be. Of course, this is just how much you want to read into it, but everyone was fucking furious that it was 20 minutes long. And
sure.
Does the question
longer?
yeah, longer, more stuff. People obviously you want the goodies of the announcements, but like, are these people going to have to come out and like tell you how long it's going to be and like standardize a scale of 1 to 10 that like this one's going to be a 7, strap in, baby, or this event's going to be a 10. You know, they can't just announce some games. Everyone was just furious because it wasn't like the big hitters.
Right, which is so annoying because like you do need to announce these sevens games. You need to because they're being made and they do make a profit, even though it's a small profit. You know,
they're all real games.
They're all real games.
Somebody wants to play these games.
Yeah, just like I guess just general, you know, PSA, just like everyone chill the fuck out. Please just chill the fuck out. If a game's not for you, that's fine. Go back to playing your dumb sweaty game. I don't give a shit. Just like let people have their thing, you know?
Well, and then the other part is that like people are so fucking stupid with shit. Like people are complaining about why hasn't Persona 6 been announced or started? It's like, you know what? They're working on Persona 6 right now.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
If they announce it too early, you're going to be pissed at that as well. But
yes,
they're working on Final Fantasy 16. They're working on the remake part 2. They've all been working on since the first game stopped, you know?
Yep. Gamers are insatiable babies. And also our audience. You're all sterling and golden. I love you all.
Fucking grow up, you goddamn assholes. Unbelievable how childish you are. I'm talking to you right now.
Yes. You're childish and you're sweaty and you need to get it together, I think.
Take a fucking shower, God.
Oh god.
But
before these events always bring out the worst parts of the game community. Just people pounding their fist that it's not exactly the thing that I wanted. Where's Final Fantasy 16? Like, they didn't have something to show this time. Like maybe next time. Right. Fucking get over it. Yeah. That drives me crazy. It's such an immature response, right? Like,
just be patient.
Just be patient. Not understanding how things work, and these things, you know, take a lot of time to have anything to actually show.
Correct. You have none of the information. As an audience member, you have none of the information about how that development's going or their marketing strategy. You have none of the information. Just like embrace that, okay? You don't know what's going on. Just chill the fuck out. It's coming. I do think
one
thing...
Are they going to do not release Final Fantasy 16? Sorry.
Lol,
yeah,
sorry.
We canceled it, actually, guys. We just kind of gave up on that one.
Yep, sad trombone sound. So one thing that I did want to mention before we stop talking about this state of play is I'm surprised at my own lack of interest in Ghostwire. How are you guys feeling about that title?
Bro? Shinji Mikami.
I know. I even missed the Evil Within 2.
Me too.
You know? So just the fact that it's like a Tango game doesn't necessarily sell me on it. And I think a lot of the promotional material wasn't singing the song that I was hoping it was going to sing. But that release is imminent. You know, that comes out in 2 weeks or whatever the fuck. I'm just surprised by my own lack of interest in a title that should seemingly interest me. It's a modernized fantasy horror game. You know, that's kind of cool. But
I think we got burned. You and me played The Evil Within back when it came out, and people were kind of down on that one. And I believe everyone fucking loves The Evil Within too. So it kind of seems like we played the wrong one and kind of got down on the studio in general. Yeah,
for sure. And, you know, again, it's always troubling to like be like, oh shit, Shinji Mikami's making a new studio. This is their first release. Dude, this is going to reach the highs of like the Resident Evil remake. And that's what we're expecting. And then we get the Evil Within, which is, you know, it's a fine video game, but it didn't blow our minds at all. It was really messy storytelling, some cool imagery stuff for sure. But largely I think a boring experience as a huge horror fan. So the fact that Ghostwire doesn't really light me up, that's kind of disappointing a little bit. I wish that this was a more exciting project to me. How are you guys feeling about this?
I haven't paid too much attention to it. I mean, obviously it's a Shinji Mikami game, so I have my eyes on it, but also not that interested. I mean, at the core of this, I'm still playing Elden Ring, so whatever, you know, I'll see it in a year, Ghostwire. I did see on the Epic Game Store, they're calling it like a prelude. And it's this really fucking cool thing. It's a Ghostwire Tokyo prologue, essentially, and it's done in a anime-esque visual novel.
Oh, interesting.
And I just love that kind of shit. Like, if I was psyched for Ghostwire, I'd absolutely get into this and read the visual novel. But it's got
cool.
You know, the game's 3D and it's got an art style, but the visual novel is all 2D manga style. And
that's cool.
Looks really interesting.
Heck yeah. Keat, you have your eyes on this project at all?
Sort of. I think it looks interesting. It is more of a straight action game though, and I'm wondering if is that part of you guys' hang up that it's not a horror game, really?
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was going to be like dark and like slow. Like you're kind of in first person slinging spells against like weird, quick spectral things. I do think that a lot of like the enemy designs and maybe just some of the some of the designs in general, I think are really cool. Playing with like broken Oni masks and like weird Japanese imagery.
For sure.
I think some of that stuff is really neat. I think it's just the energy of the project. I think is kind of missing the mark for me. I thought it was going to be slower and more thoughtful. It seems to be a little more run and gun than I was anticipating. So yes, Keaton, I think that is a bit of my hang up for sure.
It's a first person game, which is kind of where horror is trending, but I don't tend to like first person games as much as third person games.
So yeah, I think that about wraps it up for me in terms of the state of play, unless you guys had anything else you wanted to mention.
I'm curious about the Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, but that's a PS5 exclusive, so fuck me. Keaton.
I'm sure you'll be able to buy one eventually in a couple of years, so don't worry about it.
Yep, by the time the PS6 comes out.
Yeah, then it'll be backwards compatible too, so you can play all the PS5 games finally.
Nice. Nice.
I was just laughing at this this kind of trope of anime like video game style trailers. The intro of just random disconnected chunks of dialogue just
yes sir, dude,
peppered back and forth is so weird to me. Like, how is this interesting? How does this get me invested in what's going on?
I felt that so hard in the Dio Field Chronicles or whatever the fuck it's called.
Yes, the Dio Field Chronicle. I have it written out. Could I just read it for you really quick?
Please. Because it is a meme. It feels like a spoof. It feels like somebody's making fun of the genre. Go ahead, Keith, please.
Know. I was like, what? Yeah, it's a caricature of the thing. Okay, so it starts off. First you hear a woman's voice. Is this really what you want? And then you hear a man's voice. And you are certain that what we're doing is best for the people of the kingdom. And then there's a second man. Yes, I suppose it would, in a sense. And then another man's voice. The first man, I'm not sure. True.
It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing.
And then there's a third man, or a fourth, possibly, who just says, Rias. Just a name. Just Riaz.
As if that means something to us, you know?
I had to turn on subtitles to even understand what was going on there. Just a man saying Riaz.
Awesome.
And then there's a fourth, possibly fifth man saying, it made me wonder, am I still that same person?
No, dude. No. Oh my God, dude.
Do we have the developer on this studio?
Going on.
Let's see. Dio Field Chronicles. I know it's a Square Enix game. I don't know, like they might be publishing it, but
it's not like a core Square studio. It's supposed to be like Final Fantasy Tactics, right?
Yes, it's a strategy game, I believe. Yeah. So how wacky is that voiceover in that trailer, dude? Like when I was watching that, it felt like a meme, and I was hoping it was going to wind up being a comedy project, but no, it's as serious as anime can be.
Yeah, they just don't learn. Or this is exactly what people want. They just want the shitty JRPG.
Man,
shit.
is there a person that was getting off to that trailer? That to me is just so surprising.
Yeah,
a lot of people just like the mechanics of the games.
Yeah, like I don't know. I think it's a way to kind of introduce like themes of the story without really telling you anything that's going on. It is weird because they followed up these couple of lines with an actual introduction to like, you know, background of this world and the war that has kind of ravaged the lands, and they actually start going into some detail about the story. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm used to seeing in a trailer. This actually makes sense. Why do we need the random bits of dialogue in the beginning? Like, it adds nothing at all. Except
no selling point. It's not interesting at all. Like, you should be like, I should be wowed by your trailer. That's the point of a trailer. Is you're supposed to be like, this is the game you should buy. Out of all of the noise in the video game industry, this is the game you should buy. So to kick a trailer off like that, to me, is fucking hilarious. A lot of disconnected people, I do believe.
Yeah.
So it's developed by Square Enix and a company called Langkars.
Okay.
And it looks like they're a support studio on like Persona Q2, Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey redo.
Oh, weird. Okay, so they're kind of sitting on the peripheral doing a bunch of like side projects, kind of.
Yeah, but like JRPG core stuff.
Definitely.
And it's co-developed by Square Enix, which is what they're seemingly doing with all their published stuff, at least having a small part of development.
Yes, and this is like an original IP, the Diofield Chronicle. Man, dude, if you're going to come out swinging with a new IP, you're going to have to sell me, daddy. You're going to have to sell me. This certainly did not. Probably one of the most forgettable things outside of it being hilariously memeable.
Excellent.
So yeah, just, whatever. We can move on from the state of play, new Returnal update, which I'm excited for Returnal fans, for sure. Returnal's a cool-ass fucking game.
Trek to Yomi looks fucking cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Trek to Yomi, not too much information there, but it did visually kind of strike me a little bit. It seemed a little quieter and more contemplative of an experience, which, is always a little more appealing to me. Cool art style. Very cool art style.
Mm-hmm.
The black and white is
cool.
really, really nice.
Yeah, black and white. Looks like an old like Kurosawa samurai film.
Yep,
certainly. And like side-scrolling action, and then some cutscenes that go into more creative camera angles, and some like supernatural, like old like Japanese ghost story kind of supernatural shit coming out.
Yep.
That
Definitely
one looks very, very cool to me.
Yep, definitely something to keep your eyes on for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So why don't we move on from the state of play and talk about what the heck we've been playing? Honestly,
Sounds
today's episode excites me quite a bit because we're talking about some cool games here. We're going to start off the discussion with a game that Colin played recently, and a game that means a lot to me, and something that Keaton's been poking around with too. Colin, kick us off, baby.
We're talking about Nier Replicant. Keaton, do you have the version number on hand?
That is version 1.22474487139.
Thank you, Keaton. That's what we were looking for. I was going to write that down, but you had it for me. Thank you.
It's a great title that just really rolls off the tongue,
Well, how would you be able to tell it from the other Nier or the other new Nier? It would be impossible without it.
I mean, they could have called it version 2.0 or 1.22.
No, Keaton,
no,
that makes sense.
You're fucking crazy.
Shut up,
That's
you fucking
insane,
dumbass.
actually.
There's actually even
God.
technically 3 dots after the number, which implies that it continues on.
Yeah, dude. I fucking love Yoko Taro, dude. He's the developer of the game, of course.
Psychopath.
He's literally he is the industry psychopath, and we love him for that. Literally, we don't know what the dude looks like because he always wears like an Emil mask. Always.
Keaton, did you know that?
No, I didn't.
The developer of Nier actually wears the Emil mask, which you may not have seen yet in your playthrough, but one of the characters, he just wears that mask 24/7.
Some of the cinematics, some of the opening cinematics.
The iconic like weird curling smile thing. Yeah, the developer Yoko Taro wears that in every single interview. We don't know what his face looks like, despite him being... Go ahead, Colin.
He always is self-deprecating, and he says he's extremely ugly and dumb and stupid all the time, and he just does these bizarre public interviews. Yep, and just like a bona fide alcoholic. He's just fucking out there, dude, in a way that I feel like most industry names aren't. So he's memorable for that reason, and I think that like when you see the wackiness that is imbued within the Nier games and his other games, some of the Drakengard stuff and such, when you see the wackiness in that game, you can point to the guy and say, yes, it's that guy who's responsible for this insanity. I think that's really, really neat. So let's hop into the discussion here. So we all have a little bit of experience with this game. I bought Nier Replicant day one. It's still in the cellophane, dude. I still haven't wrapped it out.
Man.
You should do it though. It's real good.
I know, dude. I know. I'm dying to because I love Nier, the first game, so fucking much. That was such an important game to me when it was released on the PS3. And I'm not talking about Automata. I'm talking about the original fucking Nier, the one that Replicant is, a what would you call it? Is it a remake? Is it a remaster?
It's a remaster with some changes.
Yeah.
So part of this actually, like John said, it's a PS3 game that they brought over to PS4 and modern audiences. What was hard for me is it's been long enough between playing the games that I had trouble discerning what was actually changed.
Sure.
That I had to do research on it.
Cool.
Apparently they've entirely overhauled the combat system, but
okay.
It felt the same way it did in my mind.
Cool.
So I don't know how much of that is true. It looks really good. Again, your brain plays tricks on you. So this is what it looked like to me on PS3, but I'm
Certainly.
sure 1080p, all the textures were redone, but it's really impressive. So I kind of revamping how I want to tackle this discussion without spoiling from Keaton. So I want to start out with some of my bolder claims.
Cool. Let's hear it.
And I'll throw this to you, John.
Yeah.
Nier Replicant, the game Nier.
Yes.
The best video game soundtrack of all time. Yes or no?
Yes. Resoundingly yes. And I say that without hesitation. Nier is my favorite video game OST of all time, bar none. I think Keiichi Okabe is a fucking god. And shout out Emmy Evans.
That's what I was going to say. Emmy Evans is my favorite person in the entire world. You talk about celebrity crushes. My celebrity crush is Emmy Evans.
She's the vocalist for the project.
Well, it's just
Oh,
so
the vocals
cool.
are beautiful.
So gorgeous, dude. And it's all
Yeah.
Emmy Evans. And they have some obvious choir work as well, and some child vocalists as well. But the main female vocalist that you hear throughout Song of the Ancients and like the Kaine themes and stuff like that, that's all Emmy Evans.
Song of the Ancients, man, I was grooving. I just left the game on for a while, just listening to it.
It's so good, dude.
There's at least 5 different versions of Song of the Ancients.
Yep.
And they're all fucking great.
Yep.
But yeah, like Keiichi Okabe is amazing, and it's just so cool that Emmy Evans is just a contractor, and no matter what Keiichi does, she's always on the project. She does songs on Drakengard 3. Anytime he does a soundtrack, just fucking incredible. I will throw in some tracks here as we're talking, but it might be the best part of the game is the soundtrack. Actually, it never gets tired. The songs are beautiful.
I think that's a brilliant point, Colin, because like every single element of this game, I think, is elevated by the audio so profoundly that what might be a generally lackluster visual environment is no longer that, because of how beautiful it is to hear what the associated audio is.
How about adding on a lackluster gameplay system as well? The game, it's not that good. Like playing the game, it doesn't feel great in the hands.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to hear how the combat system changed, because I thought the combat seemed pretty fluid, pretty fun, with like enough variability that you can do a lot of different kinds of fights. I even saw some of that with like some of the more shooty sections where you're like, shooting the like the single spheres out of the book.
Yep.
And then other times you're just like melee attacking with some enemies. A lot of times you're doing both just to deal as much damage as possible.
Right. I guess I'm being a little harsh on it. It's just kind of incredibly average. And then coming off of Nier Automata, which is co-developed by Platinum Games, that game just feels better. They do that style of combat. You have the same type of magic system as well. Mm-hmm. But it's Platinum working with Square Enix. So it's hard to go back. And not spoiling too much, Keaton, the combat system opens up a bunch. There's a halfway point. This is one of my complaints, actually. They really nerf the mechanics in the first half of the game, and we don't have to get into why that happens, but I just think it's a bizarre development decision to gate a lot of your mechanics and techniques and stuff through half the game, minimizing the time you have with them.
Yeah, I get that to some degree, to like slowly introduce things, but that sounds a little too slow. Like, I would rather just have all the things right now. They even give you a pretty good intro to the combat system in like the opening scene, where they give you pretty much, I don't know, as much as I have right now, like 6-7 hours into the game. They give you a giant pipe. You have Grimoire Vice, and you unlock like a bunch of different skills, and it keeps changing one of your L1 skill like 3 or 4 times in that opening like 5-10 minute section.
Definitely.
They show you a lot.
It lets you play with
scale it back quite a bit.
It is a great tutorial. I think it's a great tutorial mechanically. I think it's a great tutorial world building wise. I think
emotionally, it sets everything up.
Yep, and fantastic piece of music. I think it's called Snow and Summer.
Of course it is.
And just like it really, really sets up the vibe of the game. And then it kind of like immediately, I'm not afraid to spoil the first 10 minutes of the game, but like it kind of drops you then into like this weird, like, what the fuck moment after that initial intro. It says, now 1,300 years in the future. Or whatever. And now like the game looks different. It smells different. It sounds different. And like you have lost a lot of the abilities that you had, literally 2 minutes ago, but you're like, what do you mean 1,300 years have passed since this moment? Like, how does that actually connect? And of course, we won't spoil how it does connect, Keaton, despite it being, I think, really, really fun storytelling and world building. Just what a fucking weird way to kick off your experience. Give you this beautiful intro and then say, bitch, now it's a millennium later. Have fun. I love that.
This game also fits into my working theory that there is no such thing as a video game with a good story. Maybe we can dive deeper on this at some point. No video games have good stories, but this one is a fun story for sure.
Yes.
And like I said, we're going 10,000 foot view here. It's got good reveals. I think that's almost the most you could hope for in a video game story. But just video games don't do good stories. Maybe we'll find one someday.
Honestly, I do like that description of it, though, that it's not necessarily a good story, but it is a fun story. And I think this is especially true for Japanese JRPGs, where things can get so explosively big and not make sense according to the actual laws of reality and how people actually are. They can get so big and weird and just kind of souls and bodies and machines and just that kind of stuff you can play with kind of, ad nauseum and kind of up to you to define the laws of that stuff. So it doesn't necessarily have to make sense, but I love the description that it's not necessarily a good cogent story, but it is a very fun story. And when we lose characters in Nier, we feel it. And that's enough for me. While it might not be the most beautifully told Dostoevsky story or something like that, right. You feel the losses. The themes that they play with, I think, are powerful, resounding themes of humanity, which are always going to strike true.
But it's all the side stuff, right?
Yeah.
The bullet point story is stupid and doesn't make sense.
Right.
And what you were starting to touch on,
I think that's why they do trailers in the style that I was talking about, because you can't.
Dude, Nier would be perfect. I want to do I'll do a cut for you where I pull random quotes and then
there are two different intro scenes that you can see if you leave it on the press start screen, and one of them is most certainly that. It's just all the different characters throwing out lines that are probably fairly impactful in the scene that they're in, but seeing them just all mashed together it means nothing.
Yes, certainly.
Well, that's what John was starting to touch on was that the story is what it is, but the characters are amazing, and the way it makes you spend time with them. And this game actually nails party banter as you're just walking around the world. They'll give you lines that truly increase the character story and you get to know them better.
Yeah.
And this is one of the most emotional games. This game makes me cry every fucking time. I knew this is my second time playing the game. I knew what was going to happen, and I was fucking not ready for it.
Yes, in some ways, Nier is sadness porn. I think it is constantly playing with
for sure
bleak, nihilistic, just dark themes, and its single emotional goal is kind of to gut punch you. But I do like that kind of in tandem with that energy is that I think this game is larger than life in almost a comedic way, often. Which is very, very fun. I remember reading back in the day, maybe it was EGM or some old gaming magazine, where Square Enix announced this project as being a more mature Square Enix game, more so than any game that had kind of come before it in terms of language, in terms of gore, in terms of what they were willing to push with their characters and stuff like that. And then you load up the game and you get that insane rant from Laura Bailey that is so larger than life and fucking hilarious. That you're kind of playing in the sphere of extremeness. When they're gonna gut punch you, they're gonna gut punch you. But when Laura Bailey's gonna cuss you the fuck out, she's gonna do it, and it's gonna be hilarious, and it's gonna be fun to swim in that pool for a little bit. So this game kind of plays with all of the extremes, and honestly, I love it for that.
That was amazing. The other intro sequence that you can get if you leave it on the start screen is that, just ridiculous rant, which. Yeah, it caught me off guard a bit. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, okay, I see that it was not an accident that this game got an M rating. It's right.
For sure.
But playing through it now, it's kind of his character single-handedly secures that M rating. You take her out and it's probably fine, but you put her in. Sorry, what the fuck is kind of wearing?
Yes, it's laundry.
Nothing?
Yeah, it's nothing.
the most absurd lingerie I've ever seen. Like
It's a piece of cloth and bandages. That's what she's wearing.
Yeah,
right.
The chest breast area of this thing. It's just like there's a strip across, and then like some strips connecting from like below. There's just like this triangular slit like opening in it that I'm just like, where is her nipple supposed to be? Like I don't understand.
Yes.
And then her like the back of her underwear is just like barely like crisscross
it's
stitched
full
together.
ass. You can see full ass. And the camera angles are making you woefully aware that there is in fact an ass there. You know?
And one of those intro scenes like just has the most blatant upskirt followed by like just panning right on her boobs. It's It's so egregious.
It certainly is. But I mean, you know, some of that stuff notwithstanding, I love that you can pull up this game and then you get that rant from Laura Bailey or Kaine. And that's the first thing that you get of this game, as opposed to you pulling up the game and it says, in a world where there are two kingdoms torn by shadow and that kind of immediately you know that you're in for something new and fresh and fun. Something that's not taking itself seriously. Such that, like, now that you're already sold on that premise that, like, okay, maybe Square Enix and Yoko Taro aren't going to take themselves seriously. Then when they say that, like, hey, your daughter's dying, I'm like, oh, wait, what do you mean? I was just laughing at the curse words. What are you talking about? How is this stuff coexisting? I love that shit. I love it.
So the other thing I want to bring up here, and Keaton probably doesn't know this, but there's two versions of the game, and I'm kind of fuzzy on...
I did know about this.
So you know that the original version you played as the father to Yona and not the brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
well,
so that's wild.
The version that we got. I think they were both released in Japan though, right? As Nier Replicant and Nier Gestalt.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep, that's exactly correct. And we only got Gestalt in the West, which is Papa Nier. I hated it. I was very upset, and I'm now a Brother Nier convert.
That's cool.
I think it works better. There's some things that happen that make the brother aspect actually make a little more sense in the story. Spoiler free. Keaton, you'll see that later on. So I'm going to head straight into bold claim number 2 here.
Hit me.
This game features the best voice acting performance of all time. Laura Bailey as Kaine.
Yep.
It's literally the best voice acting ever. She has such fucking range. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I love, she usually gets typecast like Rise. Kujikawa from Persona 4 is like the anime teen girl, and she has that voice.
Yeah.
Catherine, exactly. And then in Full Metal Alchemist, she plays Lust, which is this dark and deep, sexy voice and is bizarre. And she essentially does all of them as Kaine.
Right.
I've prepared a few Kaine quotes.
Oh, I love it. Let's go, dude.
Nice. Okay,
so she's talking to Grimoire Vice here, and she says, if you had testicles, I'd cut them off. During one of the first emotional bosses that you're fighting, she yells at the boss, unprompted, I'm going to cut out your fucking eyes and piss in their fucking sockets.
Yeah, I remember that fight.
Yep.
And that line.
One of her
no
first
other video game
here
would do shit like that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like, she's just into the party at that point in time.
Yep.
Another thing she does is she calls a lot of enemies shit hogs, which I think is just like a light and fresh take. Shit hogs.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And entering into my own lexicon moving forward. That is fantastic.
You fucking shit
hogs, dude.
And then this is the best one, and this is the legendary one. It's long, so prepare yourself. Weiss, you dumbass, start making sense, you rotten book, or you're going to be sorry. Maybe I'll rip out your pages one by one, or maybe I'll put you in the goddamn furnace. How can someone with such a big, smart brain get hypnotized like a little bitch, huh? Oh, Shadow Lord, I love you, Shadow Lord. Come over here and give Weiss a big, sloppy kiss, Shadow Lord. Now pull your head out of your goddamn ass and start fucking helping us.
That's what plays at the intro. That is the intro scene. That is the first words that you see when you boot this fucking game up. It's wonderful.
It's goofy, right? Like all that shit is funny. That's at an emotional point. She's trying to actually meet Weiss on his level because he fucking doesn't put up with any bullshit. So that's actually her trying to like be a friend to him, even though it sounds so fucking ridiculous.
No, for sure. And that's just how she talks. And like I am hard pressed to think of another character in JRPGs or maybe gaming largely speaking that manages to capture that energy quite like that. I think Kaine is such a distinct energy in this game, and I think maybe only somebody with the legs that Laura Bailey does have could pull off a performance of that sort.
It should be awful, right? Like all that stuff is almost cringeworthy, but the way that Laura Bailey performs it and in the context of the story and the emotions, it just fucking works.
Yep, you give that to any other actress and then it comes off really cringy and lame, but like, man, thank God they managed to get Laura Bailey before she popped the fuck off and become the most popular female name in all of gaming. Really fantastic.
This isn't to give short shrift to Liam O'Brien either.
I was going to say, I was just going to shout out Liam O'Brien, dude. Liam O'Brien is Grimoire Vice. His dry, almost like weird nihilistic take on Grimoire Vice is just fantastic. Shout out Liam.
Exclusively refers to Kaine as hussy at all times.
That's
right. But later on becomes a term of endearment.
Yep.
It's just delightful.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, I did maybe just real quick want to double back to the combat a little bit. I don't know if we maybe managed to explore that to the extent that maybe it deserves to. Colin, can you maybe outline like how does this thing feel and what are your different tools in combat?
So it's your super standard action RPG where you have like a light combo on square and then a heavy combo on triangle, and you can go back and forth between it. It's got a dodge roll. It's not quite like a Dark Souls dodge roll with invincibility frames, but it works pretty well. And then I guess the hook for this game is the magic system, which at times can work like a shmup. When they show Returnal, I always think of Nier.
Same, dude.
Because it's the 3D bullet hell shmup that you don't really see. I think the magic system can be deep, but I don't like to use the other magic, so I would usually stick with the first bullet spray. But you also get like lances. You can summon lances around you and toss them at them. And then some of the more complicated ones is you can use like a defensive wall, which I just didn't find that useful. So the magic system can get pretty deep. I guess my complaint would be that it doesn't ever require you to use too much of it. The healing system's kind of archaic. It's just potions, and you can craft 10 of each level, like low, medium, and high. And when you go to use them, it goes to a pause menu. So you don't need to try a lot of the time. You can just mash on them, hit the heal thing. Every enemy drops the healing herbs. I would be interested to see what Keaton thinks of it thus far. I don't know how much of the magic you've gotten to this point. You've seen some of it in the intro scene.
Yeah, I saw quite a few skills in the intro scene. I don't know how many that was overall, but like the L1 skill that you have, which is like the lance or like some other ones that you can kind of switch out. I think I unlocked like 3 or 4 of those and it just kept changing, and that was confusing. I was like, wait, wasn't L1 that other thing that you just gave me? Like, because they taught me like what R1, L2, and R2, all like what all of them do, and L1 just like kept getting new things and changing.
They're actually fully mappable. Like as the game goes on, you can map all 4 shoulder buttons to whatever you want, which is kind of interesting. You could even sacrifice like one of them is the dodge roll, right? You could sacrifice that for another magic. That's part of the issue. You can only map a few of the magic spells. I think if there was a better way to like maybe quick wheel around to them, it would work out better.
Yeah. So I mean, the combat was like decently fun. I mean, messing around with the different melee stuff and trying to like get different moves to come out was like, I don't know, it's kind of fun, but it's still just kind of button mashing at the end of the day.
Right.
Doing the sidestep to get around enemies and get them, hit them from behind and like dodge their attacks was a fun element to bring in. But I am wondering how much depth there is going to be to it. How long is it going to stay interesting? Because right now I'm kind of leveling off with how much I'm learning and incorporating into my play style.
Yeah.
Right. I do want to throw it to John to see what he thinks of the combat system, but I do want to say, Keaton, you mentioned earlier about them doling stuff out slowly, and the problem is that it's not doled out slowly. You have all of your tools now, you might get a couple more, and then halfway through the game, you're going to get a shit ton of new shit to figure out all at one time.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
So something to look forward to if you're getting a little tired of the system. But go ahead, John.
Yeah. So I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, I think there are memorable elements of the combat system in this game. Things that I think are iconic to it. Like, I do think about like, actually like the actual animation of the lances coming out and holding it for a particular amount of time and them going choom, 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 choom. Like,
incredible.
And it's rare for a JRPG to be able to say that. To say like, no, that imagistically, audio wise, all of that is Nier. Like when I think of Nier's combat system, it has a thing that's completely and distinctly its own. I think that's really, really cool. And also, as you were alluding to, the actual shmup element of this game, I think is really, really neat. I don't think that is specific to Nier, but I do think that it adds a specific distinct flavor and ingredient to the combat system that I quite enjoy. All of that said, I think what makes Nier special is not the combat.
Without a doubt.
I think this game could be a walking simulator, and I would remember it the same way. The fact that this game even has combat and fights, that's not what I remember about this game, or that's not what I think is special about this experience. So while I do think that there are memorable things about the combat system, I don't think it's even necessary to explain why this game is special in the first place. And I think some of the things that are special are its more general wacky things, which I would like to get into. But Colin, if you have a roadmap to where you would like to take this discussion next, hit us.
No, if you want to drive it next year, I just wanted to get Laura Bailey her shine specifically and talk about the soundtrack.
Yes, and as she certainly deserves it. So I do think, as I was, kind of prepping for this podcast a little bit, I did go back to the Wikipedia page for the original Nier, and I was reading through the general impressions of that game when it was released, and I'm not talking about Replicant, because Replicant, upon its release, was pretty positively reviewed.
This is a fascinating case study in review culture.
Absolutely.
You were the person that recommended this game back to me in, what was it, like 2008, 2009? Whenever it first came out.
Yeah, for sure.
IGN hated it. Well, I don't know the exact number. I think it was like a 6.4 or something.
This game was getting sixes. Yeah.
Got bad reviews across the board. And then Automata happened.
Yep.
And now people just like Nier games. So Replicant, they gussied some stuff up, but it is mostly the same game, is now a 9 out of 10 game.
Exactly.
Bizarre.
I think that's fucking stupid. Because like you said, like largely, yeah. I mean, like it is Replicant is updated visually and mechanically in small ways and stuff, but it's largely the same experience. So like what was getting 6s out of 10s, 10 years ago is now, a great game because Automata was some Rosetta Stone for people to understand what's special about these worlds. I just find that so frustrating and so odd because I remember truly singing this game's praises, not to be like an ultimate hipster about it or whatever. But
you were, though. Take the credit, buddy.
I will hold on to that. But like I remember playing through this game and just like pointing to things that like people were criticizing in reviews and being like, why is that what you're focusing on? That feels so weird to me because there's a special gleam here. There's a magic coat of paint over so much of this experience where people can say, well, the environments are dull and lifeless. I'm like, dude, I saw that as a boon. I think it's weird as fuck that I can go to this village and there's no one here. It makes me feel isolated and alone and kind of creepy and disgusted. And then like, even like this idea of backtracking, people didn't like. Like you do go back to the same towns and environments a number of different times. I like knowing the scope of my world. I like the idea of something being holistically constructed that like, yeah, you're going to go back to that town a couple of times because there's things to do in that town a couple of times. It doesn't always have to be fresh and exciting and new and revelatory.
Yeah.
Not every game has to be Elden Ring.
Backtracking is a weird part of like game reviews, especially around that era. Like that would always be brought up as a negative. Like, oh, there's a lot of backtracking in this game, and it's just like inherently a bad thing. But I totally disagree with that sentiment.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
A well-traveled area that you go to a lot and you can like continue to see in new ways. Like that's a valuable thing for a game. Like it gives you a sense of a place and a time and a setting. You're not just like kind of shuttled through one place to the next.
Yes, I love how you put that, Keaton, because it is every time you go back to a same location, it means something different because you have new context. Something new has brought you there. So it's not the same place. It might look the same, but it means something different. And that's the heart of the thing. That's the point of the thing. So
for sure. Like the state changes. Something big will happen in the story, and then the town will be literally changed for forever.
Correct.
And they accomplish some humongous moments that way. And they're all, some of it is bland, and I would even argue that some of it is bad bland. But the difference between the areas, like the area is fucking incredible.
Yes. It is.
Isolating as fuck. And then Facade is bizarre as well in its own unique way.
Yep.
It's kind of archetypes, like that's the desert area. But it all just works very well. And they've all got banger themes to them, like the robot dungeon with the automaton theme.
Yep, that song fucking slams, dude, and has a very sad context for why you're going through that place. So yeah, I mean, it is like it's maybe it's just preference. Maybe it is truly preference, but I can look at a generally bland environment, but a song can be so enticing to me where it makes that it transforms that environment entirely, or the actual context of the quest that brings you to a place can transform a dull environment into something bright and lively or dark and depressing or whatever. I've never been obviously a graphics snob, so even if something people are saying well, this environment looks hyper polygonal or whatever, I'm very capable of just projecting what that's supposed to look like and just embrace it for what it is. I don't think this game had any
we've been doing that for forever, right? I mean, that's what you did on PS1 and Super Nintendo, abstracting it out.
And maybe you guys can speak to this because you guys have, recent experience with the game. Any performance issues with the game?
No, it's a PS4 game. I believe they just have it at a steady 30 frames per second. There's no big dips or texture popping in.
Yeah.
At least I don't remember anything. I don't know if Keaton has.
Yeah, well, I'm playing on a PS5. It seems to run flawlessly.
No one cares, Keaton.
Pretty sure you just asked me.
Go ahead, continue. Say your things.
So no performance issues on the glorious, beautiful PS5, Keaton, correct?
On the PS5, no, it's good.
No, it actually runs at 60 frames per second. Colin,
it does.
It's looking real good over there. I got these 4K textures. Runs real smooth. It looks Colin.
Real good, dude.
The textures are not upgraded. It looks fine. I'm not a huge graphics snob either. I like seeing good graphics. I really love seeing some really nice next gen, the highest, most bleeding edge shit. I love to see it, but not a necessary thing. It drives me crazy when people complain about graphics. That's probably the number one thing I'm hearing about Elden Ring. It has graphics from 2014.
Well, that's not true.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't maybe look next gen, but it looks great. And
if that's the thing you're focusing on, you're a psychopath.
Right, yeah.
Fucking gamers, man.
Yeah,
never happy.
This is just going to be the shit on gamers episode.
Yep.
So
it's a case study in what you care about, right? I think this is perfect for kind of what we value in games. We're talking about music, art direction, emotion, characters, vibes, and one of the first thing I said is I don't think this game plays super well, but it's in my top 10 favorite games of all time.
Exactly.
So I think that speaks to this podcast.
I do think so.
I do want to talk about the multiple endings and
kind of
just
really
talk
neat.
about multiple endings in general. So John, did you go through all of them previously?
In the original Nier game, I got up to I think the fourth ending. I don't know.
So I think there was 4 in the original. They've added a new ending in Replicant.
Something in the original. I don't know if it's worth spoiling or whatever. Probably not. But something after my 4th ending prevented me from playing anymore.
So you did it. Good job. You did it.
Yeah.
So there's more now. So you have to do it all again to see the new thing now. Yeah, it's very cool, and that is specifically Replicant specific.
Okay.
But they do a really good job with that.
Yeah.
And this is the same way it works in Automata.
Right.
So the A playthrough is just the first game, and I do super appreciate that you can just call it there. You haven't played half the game or whatever. You can just leave it there.
Yeah.
And then my big issue was specifically the way that Yoko Taro does these multiple endings is the B playthrough is always the worst fucking one.
Mm-hmm.
It is do the game again, but I've changed 5%.
Correct.
That is not enough. There is great story stuff. They start doing these text adventures in the B playthrough. It's all great, but you have to start worrying internally. Can I skip this cutscene? Or is there going to be 5% nuance? So I have to watch all of this just to make sure I don't miss any of that.
Right. It's not a great motivating factor for replayability. Honestly, I think that if you were to combine just play through A and B, just give me all of that context originally to make the characters hit harder and, when you add that context, I mean, like, it's supposed to hit me in playthrough B to be like, oh, that's what's going on with that character. If you just gave that to me in playthrough A, like, you're not wasting my time. And then you can do the baddie shit with playthrough C and D.
Right, and then C
what
and
do
D...
they actually change? I'm sorry, I didn't really catch what actually changes for B.
So we're trying to go spoiler free here. So they'll just kind of add in... B is heavy on Kaine backstory and lore stuff.
Okay.
That you didn't get before. They'll show you some more of her perspective. I mean, they do the same with Emil.
It kind of makes the characters of Kaine and Emil.
Yeah.
Which is insane that, like, you have to play it through a second time.
They hide Kaine's backstory, which is beautiful and amazing and core to her character. And
contextualizes all of it. All of Kaine's struggles you don't find out about until B. Yep. Which is just, it's just a weird, just tell me in the story proper. What are you doing? I don't know.
Well, and so it's specifically for the first Nier, you're repeating the second half of the game verbatim.
Right.
So C, you're doing it again. There's some things you can do it faster, and then D and E get real fucking wild. Ending E is fucking incredible. Anybody hasn't played the new one?
Okay.
Fucking incredible, dude. They do some mashup stuff, mix all the worlds together. Almost a BioShock Infinite Lighthouse style, if you will.
Interesting. Well, that's exciting.
It gets cosmic, bro. It gets cosmic.
Dude, okay. Well, I mean, like, I will play Replicant eventually. And that honestly is exciting. And, like, I will go through it the 5 times, whatever the fuck I have to do. Because, I mean, if that is exciting new content, heck yeah. I'm in.
Highly recommended. That's about all I had to say on Nier. I don't know if you guys would like to bring anything else up, or if Keaton's got any questions. I
mean, I do. Just one thing that I would like to sing the praises again, because as we've been alluding to this entire time, this game means quite a lot to me. I remember it quite fondly, and I do think that it is a very, very special game. And out of all of the things that we were already talking about, it having the best soundtrack of all time and having really fantastic characters and playing with energies that games don't often play with, I do just in small ways, like some of the directorial stuff that this game does, even just shifting to a 2D perspective when you enter a house, or, you know, when you're just going to a new location and it does just become like a 2D thing and you can only explore, you know, 2 planes. I think that just adds a small bit of spice to your thing. Where, like, you know, if you think about a big AAA game nowadays, like, you would never necessarily make that decision. But I think it's just like, why not? This game asks why not a lot. Like, I mean, as Colin was talking about, you know, in playthrough 2, you do get a bunch of like literal text adventures where it's all reading. But even in the original playthrough, there's a whole text section where you just enter into a space and then basically you do a dungeon in an old, like, choose your own adventure visual novel thing. It's not even a visual, it's just a novel.
That's that Frog Fraction shit, bro.
Yeah.
Or Inscription-esque. Actually, no spoilers there either. But
sure. But like, just how cool
those little touches are huge. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like when you know that you're gonna have to do like 4 or 5 dungeons or whatever to accomplish your thing, we as gamers are prepared to know what that means. We're gonna go to a dungeon and they're all gonna operate the same way. What if one of your dungeons was a text adventure?
It's so fresh, cool. And it's huge for pacing too. Like, you're right, gamer brain goes, I'm gonna go to 5 locations. I'm going to do the dungeon and then a boss. Dungeon, then a boss. Yep. And then just to have it be totally flipped on its head. Still fun, unique. The game is incredibly well written. And
it is.
I often think about like the localization for the game a lot, actually. Because it's so joke driven and emotional driven. And I feel like the localization was probably tough on this, but whoever was in charge did an incredible job on it.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. That about wraps it up for me. I just think Nier is a very, very special project, and as somebody who doesn't love JRPGs, or I guess, I mean, it's an action RPG, but a Japanese-made action RPG, this one does it for me because it's special and it's distinct and it's creative and it plays with a lot of really fun things. So go play Nier. Seriously, go play fucking Nier.
Go play Nier.
Keaton, any final thoughts on Nier?
Nothing major. I mean, I'm liking it so far, so I'll probably have to go back and finish it, and apparently finish it a second time if I want to learn what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
No, you have to do it 5 times.
Yeah, yeah. I think so, dude.
If you get through B, we'll get you through it. Let me know. I can kind of guide you through how to do it as fast as possible if you'd like.
Yes.
Heard.
Do you think that there is a pretty obvious future for Nier?
Ooh, well, it's if he wants to do it or not. The man is fickle, and if he doesn't want to do it anymore, he won't do it. There's a fucking Nier mobile game that I'm trying to get into.
I have it on my phone. Yeah, I have it on my phone.
I haven't played it much. He most recently directed, produced. I think he just produced the Isle Dragon Roars Voice of the Cards.
Yep, Voice of the Cards. Yep.
That game is interesting.
Haven't touched it. It's in my wish list.
I played it. I enjoyed it. It's like 15 hours. It was fine. It was cute. It's a Keiichi Okabe soundtrack.
Yep.
But it's all just underwhelming as shit. Like he's doing the Keiichi things, but it's lesser. Oh, shit. So they released this game, and then they released the Nier DLC pack. So you play on a board. It's supposed to be like D&D, and then I switched the board so it was Grimoire Vice, and then my dice had a meal on them.
Awesome.
And then this was the craziest DLC. You can swap out the soundtrack so it was playing the Nier soundtrack.
That's awesome.
Well, inner turmoil because it was I want to hear the new Keiichi music, right?
Right.
But halfway through, I'm like, whatever. And there's one Emmy Evans song in Voice of the Cards. So
okay, cool.
Worth the price of admission.
Yes, glad she's still getting work for sure. I mean, I personally think that there's no shot that the Nier doesn't get a new entry. There's no shot. The way 2B took over all anime waifu lists forever, there's no way.
But it's been 5 years. I guess that's my counterpoint. It's already been 5 years.
Sure.
Do you think they would want to do it? Well, I guess it was, like 8 years between Nier 1 and 2? And if we're being honest, Nier is the second game in the series. The first game is Drakengard. You get the sixth ending of Drakengard after you get all the weapons, and then you can really know what Nier's about. And if you don't do it, you're a fake fan.
Amen to that, because it is weird that Nier does canonically take place in the same universe, which is so stupid.
Fuck you, Yoko Taro.
Fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
And
as this medieval JRPG's fifth alternate ending. That's when I read that, I was like, wait, what?
It's so
what
good.
How is that a basis? Like, you watch that one 2-minute cutscene you made for that one alternate ending, you go, yeah, we're gonna base an entire franchise off of
that's
this.
our Yoko Taro, dude. That's our boy.
Some people take that shit seriously and will actually tell you that you have to play Drakengard to play Nier. But I do think it's delicious. Just as someone who can appreciate some humor in their games, I think that is fucking delicious.
Certainly. So go play Nier, everyone. It is special, despite it getting a lot of hype with Automata's release, and then Replicant was pretty successful. If you haven't played it yet, please play it. And if you don't feel like playing it, at least listen to the soundtrack, please. It's amazing.
Check out the soundtrack.
Okay, so we're gonna shift gears and throw to you, Keaton. You're gonna talk about a little game called Risk of Rain 2. Hit us, baby.
2. All right, Risk of Rain 2. This is a third-person shooter roguelite. I suppose maybe we should address the roguelike versus roguelite thing.
Let's
first.
do it.
Should
I've got thoughts.
All right, we're gonna have to have this conversation sooner or later, because apparently I just play a lot of these. I keep bringing them to the podcast. So, we talked about this recently in one of our private conversations about the fact that most roguelikes that people are playing are actually roguelites, Lite, not Like.
Without a doubt, everyone is wrong when they're talking about it.
Sometimes also referred to as roguelike likes. I've heard that as well. So if you're not familiar, Rogue was a turn-based RPG for computer systems back in the 1980s, with a randomly generated map, randomly generated items, enemies, placements, and all that. Potions had random effects, so you just had to drink a blue potion to see what a blue potion did. And permadeath. If you die, you go back to the beginning, you start a whole new map. That is your run, and that's over. Those basic principles have been used in a lot of games more recently, people calling them roguelikes. And another side tangent, the use of the dash like after a game's name is something really interesting that only happens in the video game industry, because genres are so weird and can be so hyper specific that this set of mechanics is now a roguelike. Before a first person shooter, the term existed, they called them Doom likes. Doom was the only thing around. But roguelikes are typically just turn-based RPGs, and then things like Risk of Rain or Binding of Isaac or
Dead Cells,
Dead Cells,
that's a
End
great
of the
example.
Gungeon. These other games are more roguelite, where it has permadeath. There's some level of, procedural generation, but it's not a turn-based RPG. Basically, I think is the main stipulation, or it doesn't have those mechanics.
I guess just in general, just a framing question. Why is this distinction important? Is it a marketing thing?
well, it's a buzzword. I think that's why everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
And it's a incredibly popular genre.
Right.
The way, well, and then so it should be important because it should tell you that you're getting entirely different types of games. The way, my perceived biggest difference between them is in roguelikes, Like, nothing carries over to the next playthrough. It is true permadeath. You start the next run. But what's big and what every single game that is released now has some carryover. You can get permanent upgrades in some way, whether that's, you do a few runs, you get max health, or you unlock and upgrade your weapons. Hades is big about this. And that's the roguelites, Lites.
And I think that's what people like about the thing. That's what people like about them, is that you always feel like you're progressing through a thing.
It's a mix. You get a little bit of that classic permadeath feel, but you still get some things to make you feel like you're progressing towards the end, that you can kind of grind it out if you'd like to.
I mean, honestly, it even feels like a good original modern take on the idea of like an experience bar, where like the idea of an experience bar is very odd and esoteric. We draw the real life adjacency to be like, if you just like sit down and play the guitar for like an hour, you have some hidden experience bar within you that is going up as you're spending time do a thing. So like when we see in Final Fantasy, your experience bar is going up as you're fighting enemies. In your head, you're making the leap that like Cloud is just getting better at fighting, So, and that's what an experience bar is. But when we're dealing with these roguelites where things are carrying over, that to me is like, it's a tangible way to map progression, that you are growing as a thing. It's not so abstract. Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
And I think the big draw in a lot of these for me is that kind of extrinsic, I don't know if that's the right word. It's player experience that you're actually gaining. You yourself are like learning the levels, learning the enemy types and all that. You're learning more about the game so that the next run is going to be better. So that really is the carryover. When you're playing Final Fantasy VII and like I need to go out in the field and kill a bunch of shit because Cloud is so fucking weak. Like, he's level 4. I need to get to level 7 before I'm going anywhere. But playing a roguelite game is more, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. I need to kill some things to get used to my weapons and used to aiming and know when to use the different skills and be effective in battle, which to me is, infinitely more interesting. And that's what I really love about these games, and just kind of dipping my toes in, seeing the depth of the pool in front of me and just kind of going, whoa, like that's really cool. I'll kind of wade in there a little bit. I don't think I'm going to be diving, into the deep end of Risk of Rain 2 or any other such roguelite, but certainly enjoy my time, kind of getting ankle or knee deep in them. It's really cool.
Yeah, and maybe just to return to my initial question that I had, like the reason that it is important is because there are a group of people that wouldn't necessarily participate in a roguelike experience because it's too intense, but roguelite means something else. So it is a marketing ploy that people can point to and say, like, if we categorize this thing appropriately, it's going to garner an audience that is going to be willing to engage with the game that otherwise wouldn't.
In a perfect world, that's correct, but in truth, everyone uses them interchangeably and no one understands it.
Yeah,
I've seen like a Nintendo press release. They're doing a Metal Slug RPG, I believe, like a tactics Metal Slug game.
Yeah, they are.
And they called it a roguelike, and I'm like, it's not a roguelike.
Yeah,
on Nintendo's official website, and because I think people that like lights wouldn't like likes, So like the best example for likes is like Spelunky. You don't gain anything. You don't carry powers through. It's just a true run.
Great example.
And people love Spelunky, but that game is fucking brutal.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And a lot of people aren't signing up for that.
Yeah.
Well, even that I would argue is a roguelite.
Because they all have some small progression, right?
Well, yeah, that I mean, a true roguelike, I think, is like a tile-based, turn-based RPG. Like truly, like if you
Fair.
look at late 80s, early 90s, there were a lot of games that mimicked that exact formula. It was just like, maybe some new mechanics, some new items, and maybe a different setting. There were some that were like sci-fi and stuff, but they all played exactly like the original Rogue. And that was where the term first
Ding.
came from, roguelikes, where all these games were mimicking that formula exactly. So there was a small community of roguelikes that were truly, the same thing. And now like some of those mechanics are getting pulled out and put into other games. Calling Risk of Rain 2 a roguelike is sort of like calling, I don't know, Borderlands an RPG. Like it has RPG elements and it was like famous for that, but you still don't really call it an RPG just because it has certain like progression schemes.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
but
and
it's
It's
stuff
kind
like
of
that.
useless to
first-person
categorize
shooter.
it that way. Correct.
Mhm.
Correct. But like, I mean, even returning to your original point here, Keaton, like video games are so moving between genres constantly, and like
Mhm.
in many ways are incapable of being categorized. That like a lot of these tools, these label tools, are largely pedantic and don't necessarily
Yes.
speak to the heart of any one video game. Because I mean, you can call like Ori and the Will of the Wisps a Metroidvania, but that doesn't necessarily speak to why that game's going to be special to you as a player. So while it might draw your eye towards it on the Steam page where you see the tag Metroidvania, it doesn't necessarily capture the heart of what makes a game special. So I mean, I do think it is largely pedantic, but I also think it has like definitive truth value. Where like calling Risk of Rain 2 a roguelike is disingenuous and like not actually emblematic of what the game actually is.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where the meaning is shifting because that's just how English works. The word means
Definitely.
whatever people think that it means. Irregardless is a word now, and literally means figuratively now. Like that's just how our language works. So I think roguelike is going to go the same way. I just,
Well, funnily
just
enough,
having-
I was thinking the other
having
day.
Irregardless, and funnily enough,
yeah,
Is
irregardless. I thought I would
irregardless
just
actually in the dictionary? I
it
can't
is
believe
now.
that.
Yes. No,
No.
it is.
Well, that's
It
what the
happened in the
rule
last
is.
couple
Like,
of years.
I yelled
Yeah.
at John for using funnily enough, and because it's dumb, and that's not how words work, but people use it enough, and thus it's in the dictionary, and thus he is correct now.
yep,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
the people
Great.
have the power.
Great.
Yep. No, it is-
Irregardless, no
It
fucking
is an
way.
incredibly pedantic point. I just thought I would kind of point at it. I think it's kind
pedantic
of an
doesn't mean
interesting
useless.
discussion.
It's a very interesting discussion. Pedantic doesn't mean not worth having for sure.
It's just something we talk
I mean-
about internally a lot. We've had this
Yeah.
conversation
I'm
several
going to continue
times.
to say roguelike all the time. You're going to
Oh,
catch me
for sure.
doing it probably in the next 10 minutes. Like it's just going to happen.
Now,
Yeah,
what
for
about JRPGs? Do JRPGs have to be made in Japan? No, I'm sorry. You can talk about the game now.
We're
dude.
split on that one. We'll come back. Yeah, let's actually talk about Risk of Rain 2. So it is a roguelite, a third-person shooter
Ding.
with this really heavy atmosphere. You're trapped on an alien planet, or you're not trapped. You're investigating a distress beacon on an alien planet where some shipment went awry or something. This is not even en route. It's all very mysterious. There is some lore to the game that is sort of doled out little by little in a kind of From Softian way, but for the most part,
from Softian. Yo, what an adjective!
Felt
I love
normal.
that, dude.
I was ready to roll. Made
from
sense right away.
Softian. Let's go, dude. Carry on.
Put that in the dictionary.
Yeah, irregardless.
it's in
Let's
there
go.
now, baby. Someone said it. It's in the dictionary now. Yeah, it's got this incredibly cool atmosphere. These huge alien landscapes of these. Probably my favorite visual area is called Sky Meadow. It's this huge like purple. I mean, it's a meadow in the sky. Like it's like this huge rocky cliffs and like fields of grass and stuff. It's absolutely gorgeous. It has this incredible art style that's sort of cell shaded looking.
It's like a little bit cartoony, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a great look for first person shooters when they're not afraid to go away from like the ultra realistic Call of Duty grays and brown, right?
Mm-hmm. And this is also a very small studio game. I mean, Risk of Rain 1 was a student project by the two college students.
Wow.
And
I did not know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it was extremely successful. Then they decided that they wanted to go 3D for Risk of Rain 2, so they had to hire a bunch of new people. They had to learn how to make 3D games. They had to learn the I think the Origin engine is what it's is what it was made in. So they had to learn all of that, and there was like there was 7 years between the release of 1 and 2. I don't know how immediately they started working on 2, but yeah, pretty long cycle time.
Did Risk of Rain 1, if you know, find success immediately upon its release? I know it's pretty successful nowadays, and it's like that's a pretty people know what that game is and what it means, largely speaking. Because, like, you know, I'm thinking about 7 years between Risk of Rain 1 and 2. If Risk of Rain 1 was a student project, they probably had their lives to figure out, you know, before they can dedicate themselves to an actual, like, full project like Risk of Rain 2. You know what I mean? Colin, you're going to say something?
Just like to interject quickly. I pulled up the Risk of Rain 2 Wikipedia, and the first line is, Risk of Rain 2 is a roguelike third-person shooter.
Lamau.
Yep.
Lamau.
Actually,
I don't know if Risk of Rain 1 was... Well, actually, Wikipedia, that's incorrect. I don't know if Risk of Rain 1 was successful initially, but it is kind of...
have a Kickstarter that exceeded their goal by quite a bit. I mean, it was... Their goal was like 7K, and they got to 30K.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
That's cool.
There's that.
It's definitely considered among the pantheon of early roguelites that people like a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's really ballsy for them to go
the same time as like Isaac.
Right. And I think it was really ballsy of them to go 3D for the sequel. That's like a big fucking
Incredibly
choice.
Ballsy. Yeah.
Well, like I wonder where that. Do you have any information on that, Keith? Like why the change, especially if that's not their skill set? You know, if they were students working in, you know, a much simpler engine to make Risk of Rain 1, man, did they always want to make
Maker for
no
Risk of Rain
way?
1? Yeah.
So like what? Why the change? I wonder.
I was just reading the story behind the change. It's interesting, actually. They saw a piece of fan art where someone drew one of the characters that you can play as with all the items that they like have collected on the current run, showing on their body, and they thought, oh, that's really cool. We should try to do that. So they were trying to make another like a side-scrolling sequel where you could actually see all the items on the character. And then they decided to try to go 3D to give them a little more visual fidelity to work with. And somewhere along the way, they just decided to go full 3D. And then they realized the huge amount of potential in new gameplay mechanics that allowed them. And they eventually just kind of fully embraced that. And that's when they had to be like, okay, now just give us like some, 6 months to a year to learn the Origin engine. Certainly. And like hire new artists and programmers and the rest of it to actually get, make this thing happen. And now I think they're 20 or 30 developers or something. So they've grown a lot. And it's really cool to see because like this game came out in early access just about 2 years ago, March 2020. And it was in early access for about a year and a half. They kept working on it. They got a ton of feedback from, like hardcore fans, like in their Discord and stuff. And
free labor.
They're
free labor, baby.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they've been continuing to release new stages because each time you go to a new stage, it can be one of like between like 1 and 3 possible stages for each like numbered slot, like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3.
Yep.
They've added new stages, new items, new characters. They're up to like 10 or 12 characters now that you can choose.
And what does that mean? What does that mean?
An update.
Like, so like you can choose between different characters, like every character plays differently. They have different mechanics and ways to engage with the world. Is that true?
Right. Yeah. They have completely different skill sets. So like the first one that you have is a commando. He's got just kind of like a standard, like submachine gun. He's got a roll, just kind of like a little dive roll. He's got like a shotgun that does a big blast of enemies in front of him to, kind of crowd control in close quarters combat. I forget what his fourth one is. Everyone has like primary and secondary fire, and then like a utility skill, which for commando would be the dive, and then they've got like a special attack.
And how different does it feel to play as another character?
They can be very different. So my main one is the Huntress. She's really fast and mobile, kind of a glass cannon type. She shoots a bow, and it's a homing bow. So you just have to get your crosshair like kind of in the area, and it snaps to a person, and you're just shooting that. She has a blink ability where you can, just like phase shift forward, like 30 feet or something. So she's like constantly running in circles and blinking around and doing that, taking as little damage as possible. But then you have people like the engineer, who's like laying mines and throwing grenades, and like a rogue who's like hiding in bushes and trying to like get backstabs and stuff.
Is there any potential crossover? Can like one character get other moves from other characters, and like you can do like combined builds?
Nope. They just have their own skills, but there is multiplayer. I think it goes up to 4. I'm not actually sure. Multiplayer is a pretty big component. I've never actually tried it. I have been wanting to actually try it. But that's like some of the classes I look at, and I think they don't look like a solo kind of class. Like that looks really hard to run solo, like the rogue.
Oh, you think it needs another like team member to fill in the gaps of?
Right. Like
interesting.
I can't imagine being the rogue or the bandit, whatever it's called, just a solo. Like I would need someone else to run around and like distract all the enemies, so I can try to come in and get the backstabs and do major damage. Like I just can't imagine running that one solo. The engineer, similarly, like he can set mines around and try to like lure people into it. But what this game is all about is it basically punishes you for ever standing still. At least that's been my experience as the Huntress. She's very fragile, but just, staying still at any point, you're going to get shot up. So you need to just like constantly be moving. And I don't know, I assume that's a very purposeful decision, because the way the landscapes are built out, and like you just need to find the teleporter on each stage, and the difficulty is rising over time. So basically, you're incentivized to find it and get out as quickly as possible.
Is it gate kept? Is the teleporter gate kept by anything? Or once you find it, that's enough? Okay.
No, you have to find it. You activate it, and then it starts counting up, and you have to like stay within this bubble to get the counter to go up. Once it reaches 100, then you can go through. But as soon as you activate it, and the counter starts counting up, that's when the boss appears for that stage. So now you have to take out the boss. There's still like, whatever enemies you didn't finish off, and more keep spawning. So it's you and the boss and like this huge drove of enemies. You're trying to like kite them around, and it gets incredibly hectic. That was like, this game is hard as fuck. That's what
Is there a time limit on the stages? Like I remember someone saying there was like a 20-minute time limit, but I don't know if that varies or if I'm just off there.
There's no timer, but difficulty does keep rising. Like every minute, the difficulty
per level
goes up. I mean, just overall. So like it starts off and you're in easy, and it keeps going in medium and hard, and then like very hard, and then it's like all these like other demonic phrases like "I'm coming for you," and one of them is just like all caps "ha ha 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 ha," like that. So that just like continues to ratchet up.
Gotcha. So no actual timer. The idea is if you're there too long, you won't make it out alive no matter what happens.
Essentially, yeah. There's no hard cutoff, like you hit 20 minutes and you die or anything like that. But yeah, you need to get around, you need to collect items, which is the really fun part, is trying to get the right combination of items. Normally they're kind of random. You might get to these pods that have 3 different items available, and you can choose which one you want to buy. But then sometimes they're just treasure chests that you just have to open and hope that it's something that you want. But there are these things in this game called artifacts that you can enable before you start a run, and they make certain changes to the rule sets. And there's one called the artifact of command that allows you to choose what item you want anytime you get to a treasure chest or one of the pods or anything.
Sounds good.
So that's where you can go for a very specific kind of build that you want to try for. And I was watching some videos of some really cool builds. So there's this one item called the lens crafter's glasses, just like a pair of sunglasses that raise your crit chance. And if you get 10 of them, you have a 100% crit chance.
Hey, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. And then you get another item that speeds up your attack when you get crits. And then you get another item that's just boosting your attack speed. So now you got this really fast attack. You hit anything, you get a crit. So now your attack speed goes up even more because of the other item. Another item to heal you when you get crits. And then another one that if your health goes over 100%, you get a small barrier. So like all these things start working in tandem and you get this crazy loadout.
It sounds like this game is for like largely mechanics junkies, is what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super fun for that.
What specifically for you, Keat, drew you to this experience, and like why did you enjoy it so much?
Keaton likes his roguelites.
I do. It's weird. I don't even think of that as particularly like big as a mechanic for me or as a draw. But I guess I do. I do like games where I can drop in and play for a bit and then kind of drop out and then, go play some 20, 30 hour, Nier Replicant or whatever, and then come back and I can always play more Risk of Rain. Sure. I like having those games available to me that I can continue to like learn about and get deeper and deeper into. And Risk of Rain just struck me as really cool. There's something about the tone of this game that is very unique and very cool. If you guys haven't listened to any of the music, I would very much recommend you check some of it out. It's so good. They got this guy contracted to do the music for the first one after their Kickstarter, and they got him back for the second one, and he's using a lot of the same kind of motifs from the original with new mixes and some new music as well. It's just these really cool like electronic synth pieces that just feel very big, very kind of open and like thumping and kind of a little bit scary. There's a lot of space in them. You feel like they really fit the huge alien landscapes that you're on, but then there's something about it that is still like really like kind of upbeat and kind of motivating to like get you to like say like fuck this, we're getting we're getting home. We're gonna fuck up all these aliens and get out of here. It's got this really rich tone that goes along with the music and the graphics and everything else, and just like all the little sound effects. Atmosphere in this game is top notch. Do you know
the composer's name? Can we give a shout out, or should I look it up real quick?
I'm on the Wikipedia page. I can look here.
Christodoulou. Christodoulou. What a fucking name.
Chris Christodoulou. Yes.
Very Greek. Very Greek.
Chris Toddler Boo.
Yeah, shout out. Obviously I heard some of the compositions when I was watching some gameplay earlier. I would like to not look at the game and maybe just listen to it a little bit, because it does, at least your description there was very, very interesting. Unless it's necessary to look at the environments while listening to it, that might be true as well. But what you were just describing there sounds really, really exciting. That's great. Having a good marriage between the audio and the visuals is not an easy feat. So hats off, Chris. Hats off. That's awesome.
Yeah. And to these two designers who, just nailed all of it at every turn. This game has such a cool feel to it. Like the game feel is just top notch. It feels fantastic in the hands. And with the tone and everything, it like really makes you want to master this thing. And you can tell it's going to be difficult. I got my ass kicked in the normal difficulty, which is called Rainstorm, which sounds pretty strong. Like it's not easy at all. The easy mode is called Drizzle. And like I had to, after getting killed like 15, 20 times, I had to swallow my pride and turn on easy mode for a couple rounds. And then I was able to
just to learn
to beat it. Yeah. And it serves a very interesting purpose. It's not like most games where easy mode is just like, well, I just want to kind of enjoy the story or whatever. It's like, no, this is a stepping stone where I'm going to go easy mode, maybe with like the artifacts on. I actually don't have any unlocked. You have to do some pretty crazy shit to actually unlock them. So I want to look into doing that. But like, okay, I can beat easy mode with artifacts. Now I'm going to go easy mode without artifacts. And then we're going to try normal with artifacts. And you can take all these like steps to try to get to where you want to be.
You gotta learn your vocabulary, your grammar, and your syntax before you're speaking. For sure, dude. I get it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that's what's cool to me as well about this game is just the gigantic skill ceiling and seeing people who are masters at it. But also just like having something to like a shooter that's like competitive in a way, but more with yourself and kind of by proxy against other people. It doesn't have the toxicity of like a Call of Duty lobby or something like that.
And it's not a deathmatch. It's
Right.
a PvE.
Right.
Player versus
Co-op.
environment. There's groups. It's not just you versus one person.
Yep.
I think that's a lot more
Exactly.
engrossing than just PvP shooters.
And like, I guess people also have stakes in your own success. That being true, so like when that's true, there's no reason to be flaming people constantly. Like we should be lifting each other up because when you're better, I'm better, and it's better for everybody. Yeah, that's great. I love that stuff.
And this game does seem to have a really cool community like that. Just seeing some stuff on YouTube and kind of going through the comment sections and stuff. It's a lot like the Dark Souls community. It reminds me a lot of that, where everyone's, just kind of doing their own thing, but they're trading information with other people. They're talking about all this stuff that lights them up. And everyone's just kind of encouraging and, just wanting to get better and help others get better. I haven't gotten far into it, so I don't know. Maybe it does it. Yeah, I'm sure it does, every community gets toxic at some point. But
Certainly.
Overall,
Without a doubt.
it seems like so much better than, I would much rather get deep into Risk of Rain 2 than, Apex Legends or, Fortnite or whatever the fuck, like competitive PvP shooter. I don't know. It just appeals to my sensibilities a whole lot more.
Yeah. Do you think you have a relationship with this game moving forward? Do you think this is something that you're always going to pick up and play?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I actually got this game. I was in a Five Below looking for like a gag Christmas gift. And I found it in there for $5 US dues.
Nice.
That's crazy.
It's a disc with Risk of Rain 2 for PS4 and a download for Risk of Rain 1. These
What a
games
deal.
are on
Pretty
Steam
great.
for $10 and $25 right now. So yeah, it's a hell of a deal. They just had stacks and stacks of them at Five Below. It's crazy. But I'm really tempted now to buy it on Steam because I do want to try it with a mouse and keyboard. Like I'm getting to that point where I'm just like, is the controller holding me back? Like, is this, is this what's keeping me from actually being able to like beat Rainstorm?
Yeah.
Do I need to, make that transition? I haven't, I've started to play more shooters on PC, and I think I'm about at that point where I'm about as good on keyboard and mouse versus a controller. And, I think if I keep going in that direction, that might be the kind of next step for me skill wise to
Sure.
keep stepping up. But yeah, I really love this game. I think it's just a very unique and special game. So yeah, I do think that'll I'll continue to play in the future because they continue to work on it. I want to see what they continue to do with it, how they refine and add to it. They actually just released some DLC, which I am not terribly excited about. I was hoping that it would continue to be free updates like it has been. So seeing them charging extra for DLC is a little disheartening, but also just makes a lot of sense. So I can't imagine their audience is growing a whole lot. Although they did do pretty well with this game, but yeah.
And shout out to the developers who are called
Hapu Games.
Hapu Games. Hapu Games. Keep doing cool stuff, Hapu Games. Any last thoughts there, Colin or Keaton, on Risk of Rain?
We should hop in and play some rounds. I'm curious. And Keaton, I looked it up. You can use a mouse and keyboard on PS4 if you'd like. Just
Really?
Sit on your carpet and play it on your big TV and try and find a mouse pad or something.
I'll have to get one of those couch that it's like just a big wooden board to put on your lap, basically.
Nice.
Yeah.
And sit on your couch and do mouse and keyboard. Yeah.
Any closing thoughts there, Keith?
No, I think that's about everything I had on this one. Yeah, it is a deep pool, like I said. So, who knows? Maybe someday in the future we'll revisit if I have more to say about it. But yeah, incredibly cool game.
Heck yeah, dude. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about today is a series that actually means quite a bit to me. I am not going to be talking about a horny horror game today. I'm going to be talking about something quite different. I'm going to be talking about the Ganbare Goemon series. And for those of you who don't know, in the West, your maybe experience with this series might be limited to Mystical Ninja starring Goemon for the N64. There are a couple of other titles, but I think maybe the most nostalgic and most memorable for a Western audience would be Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. But the thing about this series is that its actual entry list and the amount of games that were made is pretty fucking girthy. Whereas there are a number of different games called Mystical Ninja starring Goemon.
Excellent.
Which is
or variations
insanity.
on a theme.
Yes. But I'm going to limit my scope here to the games that I'm going to be talking about to the 5 games that are canonically considered the Ganbare Goemon games. So Ganbare Goemon 1 it was in fact released in the West, called The Legend of the Mystical Ninja. And then Ganbare Goemon 2, 3, and 4 were Super Famicom games that were never brought to the West, and I played fan translations of, which do exist online, and I highly recommend people seek them out because they are really fantastically translated. And then Ganbare Goemon 5 is also known as Mystical Ninja starring Goemon for the N64, a game that is very, very important to me. A game that I grew up with and do revisit with some regularity because I think it is a gem. I think it is an N64 gem that doesn't get nearly enough love. But if you know, you know. Like people who
ridiculous.
know... It's
Game
ridiculous
kicks
how... Yes, it truly does. So immediately I'm just going to throw to the two of you. Do you guys have any experience with Ganbare Goemon? Colin, I know you have a bit. So tell me about your experience with these characters and such.
Impact. Dash, dash, dash. I love this series very much. I should play more of the games, but I didn't grow up with it, but you and a large group of our high school friends all loved this game. So I played Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. Was blown away by how good it is. It's just an actually great N64 game that should be considered. You read all the articles online about top 25 N64 games. Should absolutely be on that. Besides that, I've also played Goemon's Great Adventure for N64, which is a 2D platformer with co-op that is brutally hard. I cannot finish that game. And then I've played the Super Nintendo one a little bit. But that's all I've done with the series.
And honestly, an interesting point there, like the 2 games that came out on the N64, Mystical Ninja starring Goemon and Goemon's Great Adventure, are kind of the 2 different takes on what Ganbare Goemon is as a series. Right. So Mystical Ninja starring Goemon is an adventure game. It's an action-adventure game in the stylings almost of Zelda. And I think
it's an Ocarina of Time.
It's Ocarina of Time.
Not a clone, but that's what they're doing with the series, essentially, as games were moving to 3D.
Correct. You're progressing through the world in a similar way that you would 3D Zelda. You're doing dungeons and there's an overworld and you're interacting with NPCs that then like kind of point you in a direction to go. It's very, very Zelda-like, and I think in many ways. I don't think this is going to be maybe that hot of a take, but I do think Mystical Ninja starring Goemon does live directly next to Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask in terms of quality. I think it's that fucking good, and I don't mean to be hyperbolic like that. It's very different in flavor. It is very, very different in flavor.
Yeah. Now let's get nitty gritty here. So you have Majora's Mask above Ocarina of Time. I just want to put this on the book so everyone knows.
Majora's Mask is maybe my favorite video game of all time. So that would be number 1.
And then Goemon or Ocarina of Time?
It's possible that Goemon's between them.
Say it, you bitch, double down.
All right. Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, I think, is a little better than Ocarina of Time. You got to get spicy.
Excellent.
That's what gets the clicks. So Keaton, tell me about your experience with the series, if at all.
Well, this morning I played about an hour and a half of
Nice.
of Mystical Ninja
Tight.
starring Goemon. And I watched a little bit of your Ganbare Goemon 3 video
Okay.
as well, just to get a taste of what that was like. Yeah, some pretty distinct kind of game feels, but it all has that same storytelling kind of flavor that was just really, really fun. The characters and the setting just so bright and cartoony, and the games are beautiful. Especially the
Stunning.
Goemon 3 on Super Famicom.
The Super Famicom games are beautiful. They're beautiful, dude.
Sprite work
Absolutely.
is gorgeous. The shading and everything, and so much like depth to it. Very, very little experience, but I can already see why this is so special to you. Not a lot of games like this that are like this good and enjoyable. I was very surprised to hear that, they didn't want to bring hardly any of these to the West because it was like too specific to Japanese culture.
Too Japanese is literally the idea. That's why these games were not brought over. We weren't all weebs yet, I guess is the idea. It took 20 years and then all of us are weebs. Right.
It's like medieval Japanese, like, I don't know. I would have loved this as a kid, I think, and I didn't know anything about Japanese culture.
Well, I think about how much when I was a kid, I was 6 years old or whatever, and I was playing Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, and I didn't even think about the weird lost in translation. I'm from the West, they're from the East. Didn't think about it. They were cool, funny, quirky characters.
Eating rice balls for health and stuff. Just literally stuff not in American culture. Rice cakes and whatever.
Right. And like to a kid, like I'm not, that's what I don't give a shit.
Sure.
So to pick up, or to maybe just describe a little bit what these games are more generally speaking. So Legend of the Mystical Ninja, which is technically the first Ganbare Goemon game. Colin?
It's the first game.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Annotating along with you.
Beautiful.
Yep.
This is very clearly the most, and obviously most bare bones version of what this game winds up being. It is very much arcadey in nature. It's tough as nails. All of the Ganbare Goemon games, I think for the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom are pretty difficult. I don't think they ever reach the highs of like a Mega Man or something like that, but I do think that they're above like Mario caliber in terms of difficult platforming, but maybe just shy of Mega Man. But the first one is pretty brutal. And while it does have some of the fun fixtures of the series and where the series shines thereafter, they're just not there yet. They're still just kind of figuring it out. Even predating Legend of the Mystical Ninja is an arcade game. I think it's just called Goemon, maybe. I might have that wrong.
Mr. Goemon?
Well, Goemon's...
Mr. Goemon. It's called Mr. Goemon.
Goemon is a historical figure or folklore character in Japan.
Goemon is a Japanese folklore character. Mr. Goemon was an arcade game, but it looks nothing like the Goemon that we're familiar with. But the heart of it was there. The idea was there. But then finally, in the Legend of the Mystical Ninja, we start to see Goemon with his iconic blue hair and Abisi Maru, who is his sidekick, basically the comic relief character. They're there, and we're starting to get character identities and the rest of it. We're starting to figure out what this world is like. It's fun, but doesn't necessarily reach the world building and flavor highs that I think the rest of the series is so important for having.
For sure.
So it's a fun game. Legend of the Mystical Ninja is a fun enough game. But I do think that I was stunned playing Ganbare Goemon 2. I think the fan translated subtitle is The Strange General McGinnis, I think. And these all have fantastic titles. But Ganbare Goemon 2 it captured all of the energy of Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. For the N64, which was, I have so much nostalgia for, and I am in love with the way that Mystical Ninja starring Goemon tastes. I was blown away by the way that Ganbare Goemon 2 captured that energy exactly, that they had that shit figured out, 10 years before the N64 title came out. In terms of the musical sensibilities were spot on, and we're certainly going to talk about the music later on. The aesthetics, the characters were all present, and functioning in the same character roles as they do in Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, and it sounds like they landed on who these characters are and what they look like and their special skills that they get, mechanically how they function.
So is everybody introduced at that point? I do find it really impressive that they found all this stuff. Is Impact in that, and Yae and Sasuke as well?
Yes, yeah. So in Ganbare Goemon 2, they have the whole cast, and they have Wise Old Man as well.
Right.
So basically, the main cast of Ganbare Goemon, and I think this is so important because these characters are all preserved across the series, and I think their dynamics and their specific identities and the way they function between each other socially is why this game just feels so good playing throughout these avatars. So you do have Goemon, who is the main character, the titular main character, and he is very much a shonen anime protagonist.
Right.
He's pretty reckless, he's super fun, he's super competent, but he's also like hyper naive, which just makes it, he gets into all kinds of tomfoolery because he's kind of stupid, but he likes that he gets into reckless situations and knows how to handle them. He's a typical shonen protagonist for sure. We have Abisimaru, who I think is my favorite character in video games.
Your comic relief character.
He's your comic relief character. He's dressed as this like elegant ninja, but he's like this chunky, hyper horn dog.
Big tubby boy.
But he's so funny that like we don't get characters like this enough in video games where like nothing about him can be taken seriously, where even in the Ganbare Goemon games, you're looking at like Sasuke, who's like a mechanical ninja. He's throwing shurikens and like launching bombs. Goemon's using pipes and bashing people across the head. Abisimaru is using like hula hoops to attack people. You get like an omnidirectional attack when he whips out a hula hoop. He used like he used like twirlers, like carnivore, like fun streamers as attacks. He puts on like ballerina costumes and spins around to break through blocks in the ground. So he's so ridiculous that it's hilarious.
How about his crawling animation?
It's amazing. It's the best thing fucking ever, dude.
Absolutely legendary.
Yeah, like so like you think that like a crawling animation, you get on like you combat crawl, right? That's what you do. Abisimaru gets on his fucking back and goes it's just
like a hip thrust, like
and he
worm his way across the ground with his head and feet. Like it's so ridiculous.
It's so wonderful, dude. He's
rolling, man.
Yes, and like even the way that Mystical Ninja starring Goemon starts, like our introduction to those characters are like Abisimaru and Goemon are inside of a restaurant, and basically Abisimaru is trying to get them a discount, so he takes off all of his clothing and he starts dancing, and that's why they kick him out. And like Goemon's like, Abisimaru, like what the fuck are you doing? He's like, they just don't appreciate me. They don't appreciate my beauty, and he's standing there in a fucking loincloth. It's so flavorful and fun. So I mean, those are that's like the buddy cop duo there, and then you have Sasuke, who is a mechanical ninja, and he serves more as the like edgelord character. He's the one that you're gonna
have one apparently.
You have to have one in anime. He's the one that you're gonna find standing on top of a pagoda and just like looking off at the landscape and thinking about what he has to accomplish. And then you have Yae, who is like a princess
mermaid?
ninja. She also turns into a mermaid. She's very stoic in her own right. So it's kind of like Goemon and Abisimaru are the Chaos crew, and Sasuke and Yae
straight
are,
man, right?
Yeah, they're the straight people. Exactly. Yeah, they're the straight men. And then you have Impact, who is your mech, basically.
Impact.
So it's funny because Impact himself is a character. So like
he's an actor, correct?
Yes, so like this is kind of the thing. At the end of Ganbare Goemon 4, at the beginning of Ganbare Goemon 4, you find out that Impact isn't just a mech made by Wise Old Man. So Wise Old Man is another recurring character that makes a bunch of robots. He is truly responsible for all of the anachronism throughout the series. And this game plays heavily with anachronism. It takes place in feudal Japan, but there's time travel and spaceships. And they all chalk it up to just inventions of the old man. And that alone I find hilarious. Whether it's protagonism or antagonism, if there's a robot in the game, it's because the old man made it. And I think that in and of itself is hilarious.
Did he also invent America and Hollywood? Because that's where they keep talking about Impact being like, he's off in the US making a movie.
So this is it. So at the beginning of Ganbare Goemon 4, you think that Impact was a mech made by old man to serve like typical mechy roles. You know, like you're just going to be a bigger exoskeleton so that our character just can do battle with larger enemies. Find out he's actually an alien from a planet of other impacts. Then and this is literally one of my favorite moments in the entire series. At the end of Ganbare Goemon 4, your main antagonist in Ganbare Goemon 4 is named Seppuku Maru. And basically, all of Ganbare Goemon 4 is about these different sports enthusiasts have basically taken over Impact's home planet, and they're all led by Seppuku Maru, who thinks that seppuku is the most extreme sport. And he's all about that.
Wow.
So
What?
in the final moments,
Oh my God.
Impact basically, like, because Goemon and his friends have saved his planet from all of these other, athletes, says like, okay, I'm going to take care of Seppuku Maru. And what he does is he flies off and grabs Seppuku Maru and goes to like fly into the sun with him to like kill both of them simultaneously. And there's this hilarious tearful scene where like Impact is smiling and he has tears coming out of his eyes. And each of the Goemon characters are in each of the different tear bubbles as he's flying through space. But at the final moment, Impact whispers into the ear of Seppuku Maru. He goes, bro, seppuku's not even a sport. And Seppuku like loses his fucking mind and kicks Impact back to the planet. But since they were so close to the sun, it sparks Impact's hair up into an afro. And when he gets back to Goemon and his friends, they're all just like keeling over in laughter, being like, "Oh my god, this is the best look I've ever seen on you, Impact." And then and Impact goes like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" And it pulls the camera out, and he has a huge afro, and he's wearing a disco outfit, and he starts dancing. And then that starts his career as a dancer, and he moves to Hollywood, and that's where we start in Mystical Ninja starring Goemon.
Fucking go, boys!
Literally,
Incredible.
Ganbare Goemon 4's subtitle is Ganbare Goemon 4, The Twinkling Journey, The Reason I Became a Dancer. So It's all about Impact, who's not a mech, he's an alien, and he found his calling to be a dancer because he was trying to kill himself by traveling into the sun with Seppuku Maru.
Oh my god.
So yeah, that's Impact. You think he's a mech, but he's actually not. And then the only other two recurring characters, as I mentioned, was Wise Old Man, who's basically responsible for all the anachronism in the game, and also Omitsu, who's kind of just like a generic anime girl, like love crush for Goemon, and she's recurring, and she's also often a motivating factor for Goemon to do things in the world. Omitsu's in trouble, let's help her out. So, I mean, that's generally the main cast, but kind of speaking to my point about, how you think that Impact is a mech, but he's actually not. This game is actually, or this series is actually a parody of shonen anime, which I find incredibly fun, because shonen anime is largely cringy, especially when it takes itself like hyper seriously. So you have all of these shit dick characters that all kind of suck in their own right, but they all suck together, is really, really fun to me. But something that I do want to ask you guys about, and it's something that I think about a lot when it comes to parody, is like, so Goemon is largely, in terms of its storytelling devices, employing the exact same devices that the actual anime genre itself is employing. So largely speaking, Ganbare Goemon is a shonen anime. It's playing the exact same game as shonen animes play, but it's a parody. I wonder where that line is, and I often wonder where that line is.
It's tough, right?
Yeah, I mean, the example that I come back to all of the time, and I know that, Colin, you had recently watched Twin Peaks, which just continues to delight me, and it's always the example that I go back to when it comes to parody of genre, where, like, Twin Peaks, as an example, is a parody of soap operas and telenovelas in a lot of ways, where, like, a scene is going to be hyper-dramatic, but, like, there's a self-awareness of it. The reason that scene is playing out the way that scene is playing out is because David Lynch is employing the mechanics of a telenovela or a soap opera to elicit a certain response in an audience member. He's doing the same thing that soap operas do, but he's self-aware about it. It's the same thing, but he's self-aware about it. Does that transform the nature?
Thin line.
It's an incredibly thin line. Do you guys think that actually transforms the nature of the scene itself or the content, largely speaking? Or do you think no? Do you think you just admit it? You're just a soap opera. Just admit it, Mystical Ninja. You're just a shonen.
I don't know if Twin Peaks is a good example because it's the greatest show ever. Holy shit. Like the first 16 episodes of Twin Peaks, the first season, and then the first 8 or 9 of season 2 is fucking incredible.
It is.
And then as Lynch falls off, the series becomes, oops, we're just a soap opera. We're not the parody. there are so many things in the first 16 episodes that actually have something to say about it. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, they're not necessarily taking down the soap opera or whatever, but it absolutely adds to the experience. Also, it's like a surrealist horror thing, right?
Certainly,
Because it's a small town soap opera that is absolutely a horror show.
For sure.
So I guess the point would be that the creator, the director, has to know what they're doing. David Lynch is a fucking god, and thus that works out flawlessly.
Yes.
But Mystical Ninja just comes off as a goofy anime, and I think there would be several people that don't even see the parody. Like if you just came to the game fresh, you'd be like, hey, this is an anime game, and wouldn't see the parody aspect of it.
I agree entirely. And like, I think this is particularly interesting in the case of Mystical Ninja because it's one of my favorite series of all time. And I fucking hate mech as a genre. I hate it. I think it's so boring and tropey and nonsensical. So to me, it requires the self-awareness to play with the tropes of mech and to almost, what would you even say? Like laugh at the things that we're employing while we're employing them simultaneously. It's to be both, to embrace what it is that you see on the screen while being aware that it is on the screen itself. It's very meta. There's
Correct.
something, yeah.
Like he's doing like a Mechazord or whatever the Power Rangers thing is as things with impact.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, but it's just the same thing. Is it actually funny at this point?
Exactly. Keat, any thoughts on that point?
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, I guess it's about what kind of reaction that you're going for, right? Are you trying to get people all hyped up like, oh yeah, Impact's gonna do it, or you're just like, this is fucking ridiculous, like where did this fucking mech come from? Like that's how it was for me. Like it starts an entire like intro sequence, like an anime opening, like theme song to Impact coming down. I didn't know who he was, so that was my introduction to Impact, this mech coming down in feudal Japan. Like I thought that was fucking hilarious.
Excellent. Yeah, that part's great.
I think that's not really towing the line, though. I think that is very clearly, parody. But I definitely understand the phenomenon that you're talking about. I think it's down to kind of intent, really. Is the intent just to make you laugh?
Right, for sure. And like, I guess if it's done in sincerity, you that is always going to be obvious to an audience member. I will never necessarily hold that against you as a creator if you're being sincere. So the fact that, as a 30-year-old man, you can watch, the intro to meeting Impact and Mystical Ninja starring Goemon and get a genuine chuckle, that to me means that the creators are doing something right. And same, whenever I watch that intro scene when they play that song and like, they're doing all of the like almost like Power Ranger assemble type of things, it's so silly, and we know what they're doing, and we know that they know what they're doing, and all of that unites in a genuine laugh to me. So I mean, that's kind of what the series is playing with. It's kind of playing with that idea, the subversion of the shonen anime, So just to kind of blow through it real quick, because I mean, like I do think that the most important game here to talk about is Mystical Ninja starring Goemon for the N64, but Ganbare Goemon 2, 3, and 4 are all very special in their own right. So Ganbare Goemon 2, you choose your character that you want to play as. You can play as Goemon, Abisamaru, or Sasuke. And Yae is tangentially in the story herself. So the whole cast is present. But it functions like Super Mario World, primarily, where like there is an overworld map, and you're going from level to level, and each level is flavored differently. And every level has a different iteration on the quirk. You're kind of engaging with different mechanics and different environmental obstacles and such. All very thoughtfully done. I think Ganbare Goemon 2 is a very, very well-made game. I don't love like world maps in platformers and such, but the level design in this game is so great that I didn't mind it all too much. Just really tight mechanically, relatively difficult. And the visuals and the sound is absolutely on point. Ganbare Goemon 2 gets a hard recommend for me, just as a platformer fan. Hard recommend. Ganbare Goemon 3 is a more top-down Zelda-like experience. It's more like a Link to the Past, where it's it's not mission-based. It's just an open world. This one has a lot of, and maybe this is up to maybe potential failures of translation. It does have a lot of really wacky triggers that force me to look a lot of things up.
For sure.
Which is, a little tiring and a little troublesome. It functions like a Zelda game, a top-down Zelda game, where there is an overworld that you're navigating. You're talking to NPCs to get directions about where to go, and then there are dungeons off of that. And the dungeons are really well constructed, and those serve more as like platforming levels. But Ganbare Goemon 3, I think, is the weak point of the series, largely speaking. You can tell that they don't have a lot of experience with making games of this sort. Whereas, like, A Link to the Past is very elegant in its motivating you to do things in its world. This game simply isn't. And that could be a translation thing. It certainly could be a translation thing.
Right.
Yeah, not my favorite entry in the series. Cool that they... Go ahead.
Does 4 iterate upon that, or does it go back to the style of the first and second one?
It mixes, which I think is exactly the right idea. So what you do in 4, as I was, setting it up earlier with, you go to basically an alien planet where Impact is from. The planet itself is kind of destroyed, and Impact and your 4 cast members decide to separate and go to 4 different chunks of the planet that are all flavored differently. So you're kind of playing through 4 different maps with each of the characters, and then once you get to a particular place in their map, you get to join up with the other characters, such that you can then return to other levels that were like Goemon based, but now you have Yay. You can now use...
Sounds like a Metroidvania.
It's a little Metroidvania-esque. It is a little Metroidvania-esque. And then after you complete all of the maps, there is a final map where you have the full cast, and it's more difficult. But the coolest thing I think about Ganbare Goemon 4 is towns. They have towns that are meaningful, and there's actual things to do in the towns. So you're interacting with NPCs that might have small quests for you, or particular types of things to do. It makes the world feel like living and breathing.
Yeah, I think that's what's so good about the N64 game as well, and it's just the light RPG elements. You're not doing a level bar, experience points, and all that stuff, but it definitely makes the world have a sense of place, and getting to know the characters, the city. And all the stuff like that give you a real sense of place.
That's exactly it. Because especially when you're doing, like Ganbare Goemon 2, 3, and 4, where it feels like you're going through levels, put a town in there, and now immediately you get a sense of stakes and a sense of place, as you were saying, Colin. Goes a huge way. And honestly, in some ways, I think Ganbare Goemon is unrivaled in terms of their sense of place, in terms of how good their towns are. Their towns feel so good. And I think they just truly rip the knob off in Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon in terms of towns. Each of the different special hub towns in Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon, they're all so flavored differently, but you feel cozy there. You do feel that people are living and breathing, and that the problem that has currently befallen those people is specific to those people. So when you're talking to the NPCs that live in a specific town, whatever is your main focus in terms of your quest, that's what those people in that town are talking about and are stressed out about, and will give you tips to figure out how to remedy. It's really, really nice. So, I love Ganbare Goemon 1 through 4, but Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon is it's masterclass to me. It's truly masterclass to me, in terms of feels, in terms of vibes. Shout out the music.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is this the second best video game soundtrack of all time?
Dude, it is! It is, though.
It's really good.
It is really, really good. So, like, the music, and, shout out to the Ganbare Goemon 1 through 4 soundtracks as well. They're exactly what is present in Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon. It's exactly the same sensibility. So the soundtrack is largely using like classical Japanese instrumentation, like pipe flutes and shamisen and kotos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it employs them almost in a pop context while still doing like a Japanese pentatonic scale, largely speaking. It's not afraid to throw in a weird Western blues note, and not afraid to do like a 1, 4, 5, 6, like Western chord progression, like a poppy chord progression, while employing all of those other Japanese fixtures in music, like traditional Japanese fixtures. The marriage is stunning. The marriage is fucking stunning. And beyond just the actual background music being as good as it is, we were alluding to there being like an impact theme. When you interact with your mech for the first time, it pulls you away and has a full like minute-long thing where you're watching Goemon go through impact and shit like that, and a dude comes in and starts singing and shit like that. And the theme song
So
of
good.
Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. It's a straight anime theme song. When you boot this thing up, it goes Ganbare, so Ganbare. It's amazing.
Oh, it's so good. Isn't that guy famous for? He also did like the Dragon Ball theme or something.
He's like a known dude. He's like a known fucking dude. Shout out the composer, just so the name is in the ether. It's Yasumasa Kitagawa is the composer. Shout out. Just absolutely fantastic work. Like, seriously, it's so freaking memorable. Listen to that soundtrack. Front to back, it's perfect. Front to back, it's perfect. It captures the whimsy. It captures everything just so freaking well.
What's the best town theme? It might start with an M or something. I forget. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, there's so many good town themes. Yeah. So yeah, shout out to that. And Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, in terms of the music, has my favorite scene in a video game. Bar none.
Okay.
My number one favorite scene in a video game is in Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. And it is when finally, it's about, if this game is like 8 to 10 hours long, it's about 7 hours into the game. And it's when Goemon and his friends have finally been reunited and confront the main antagonists for the first time. It's the first time in person Goemon and his friends lay eyes on the antagonists. It's my favorite scene in a video game. So, like, up until that point, you're unsure what the antagonists are getting into. All you know is that in the opening cutscene, a gigantic spaceship flies over feudal Japan and just nukes the castle of the city. That's all you know about. So you think that they're coming for some like weird nuclear holocaust type of shit. So like you're preparing for the absolute worst. It's terrifying. You finally get to the end of their castle. And the two main antagonists' names are Danson and Lily. They're a couple. And when you finally get to basically like Ganondorf's room, like think about when you see Ganondorf for the first time as adult Link and he's playing his fucking organ. He has long hair. You know what I mean? That energy. This is that moment in Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. You get there and it's a gigantic stage. And then like the camera cuts from Goemon, who's like looking out and being like, wait, where the fuck are you? Like, show yourself. The camera cuts and then slowly they emerge from the stage, Danson and Lily, and a piece of music starts. And they start singing opera. And it's actually vocalized. And they sing a song called Gorgeous My Stage.
Gorgeous My Stage. So good.
And then you start to see the different enemies that you're fighting in the game start coming out as extras, and they begin to dance as well. And all of the main bosses that you've been fighting come out as well, and they're doing like side things and singing backup. They're putting on this whole stage production, and you learn that the main motivation of the antagonists is that they want to turn Japan into a stage. That's the thing. They want everyone to bear witness to their beautiful opera. So this whole time you're thinking apocalyptic insanity, and they're just trying to put on a musical.
Oh my
and
God.
like the song itself is so funny and well done, and you just don't expect it. The first time you see Ganondorf, you're not expecting him to go, oh, no. That's not what you're expecting. So it's amazing. And then, spoiler alert for the end of the game, they are incredibly successful, the antagonists, at convincing all of the people of Japan to like appreciate their art. Where like finally you beat the bad guys, and a bunch of like Japanese women are like swarming towards you guys, and like Goemon and his friends are like, oh, here they come. They're coming to like appreciate us. Like, bring it on, baby. And they're all furious. Like, what the fuck did you do to Dancing and Lily? Like, they were the best thing that has ever happened to Japan. It's just so frivolous. The name of the game is silliness. The name of the game is silliness. And in a world where every AAA game is dark, gritty, and nihilistic, more of this. Just be silly, please.
The game's hilarious. I do wonder how much of it is the localization, right? Like, so even something like Gorgeous My Stage, is that actually bad localization that just ends up being very funny?
Right.
And the jokes are very dry when they're talking about like the Peach Mountain Gang or the Pear Mountain Gang.
Cue laugh track. There's an actual laugh track.
The fucking laugh track is unbelievable in that game.
Hilarious.
Spot on.
Yeah, so I mean, not only tonally, but like mechanically, this game feels really, really nice. There's nothing wrong with mechanics, genuinely.
Can I ask, what is it with the pipe? Why is Goemon hitting everyone and everything with a pipe?
Yeah, it's actually based off of his folklore thing. I think Goemon smoked a pipe. Like that's what he was known for. So that just
he was like a noble thief, right? Like
He was a
Robin
noble
Hood
thief.
kind of figure.
Exactly. He's basically the Eastern Robin Hood is the idea.
Mm.
So yeah, like pictorially, he's often represented like smoking this ginormous fucking pipe. I know in Persona 5, one of the main characters' personas is Goemon, is named Goemon, and he has this huge pipe, and that's basically what he uses as well. So it just seems like kind of something that is naturally associated with Goemon as a mythic figure in Japan. And just kind of speaking to that point, Goemon in all of his iterations always gets a chain pipe, which is one of my favorite weapons in games. It feels really, really nice. Always just like an extension. You know, it's not your hitbox isn't localized; it's delocalized immediately. And you can also use it to chain onto different points of interest in the world as well. Feels really nice.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I do love a good chain. I love the chain whip in Castlevania, or just the whip in general in those. And I'm the cane, the threaded cane in Bloodborne.
And Bloodborne, yeah, dude.
Yeah, that's my favorite weapon. Yeah, I love a good swinging chain.
Yeah, heck yeah. Yeah, and it is cool that all of the weapons of choice of all of the characters are consistent across the series.
Oh, really? Wow.
So you know that Yae at some point is going to get a special power to turn into a mermaid. You know that Abisimaru is going to be able to shrink down and get into small places. You know that Sasuke is going to be able to get like a fly ability. You know that Yae is going to get a bazooka at some point. Like, you know all of these things, and they're consistent across the series, which was really fun to me, who has so much experience with Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, to go back to their earlier titles and play the fan translations and see that those things were there all along. Like, that was really, really neat to me, and something I recommend, Colin. I think you would really find some appreciation. You know,
about to do it, bro. Don't even worry. Got them all downloading. Don't worry,
it, dude. I mean, the last thing that I'll say, obviously they're visually stunning. They're sonically stunning. They have set pieces. Every single Goemon game has set pieces that are technologically impressive to me. I do think about in Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, the actual mech fights, I think are insane to me. Where like not only are you're no longer just exploring 3D space as like Link, mowing down small enemies in fields and such. When you actually go into Impact, it goes into first person mode, and you have a completely different tool set at your disposal. You're playing against some weird antagonistic force outside of yourself, and it's moving in odd ways, and you beat it up like a mech, but you're seeing through the eyes of the mech. It's odd, and they do that in the Super Nintendo games. It's so crazy. In Ganbare Goemon 2, it's almost 1-to-1. You like have those fights. It's so weird to me. In Ganbare Goemon 4, all of the boss fights against the athletes, the evil athletes in the game, have their own original minigame that is so visually impressive to me, and it's distinct. Like one, for example, there's just a guy who's like standing up in the sky, thousands of feet, and he takes out a sword and he kind of jumps down, and you as Impact have to catch the sword above your head by timing different meters appropriately. But the way it's visually depicted is it's insane to me. It's actually insane to me. And each of the different boss fights in Ganbare Goemon 4 have an event like that is as visually and technically impressive to me. I can't believe those are Super Famicom games in some ways. It's just cool. It's just cool that a team like that is as creative as they are, and they're willing to push the tech as far as they are, despite not being that well known. I mean, they're pretty well known in the East, not that well known in the West. But some of this stuff just truly stunned me and blew me away. And just pour one out for another beautiful series that has just been sodomized by the corporate dick that is Konami.
There's like 18 games in the series. Only 5 have been localized. The last localized game came out in 1998.
It just fucking sucks. And guess where Goemon is living currentay? In pachinko
machines.
Yep.
Well, it's a fucking Konami property. What did we expect?
Yeah.
Yep.
They released at least one game from like 89 to 2002. And then there's another one in 2005, and then it just became pachinko machines.
Yeah.
That's the trajectory of a Konami IP.
Yes,
that's how that goes.
No, it truly is, and you do begin to see the money grabbing begin to take root. After Goemon's Great Adventure, they did some Game Boy Advance games where they pretty much abandoned the entire cartoonish style of Mystical Ninja starring Goemon and went hard-hitting anime, where Goemon is now a hardened shonen protagonist, and Abisimaru, his comedic relief character, is now his daughter, who's like a hot anime babe.
Oh my God.
It's just such a shame. Those games do not have fan translation, so I didn't get to actually play them. but from the visuals, it kind of kills me. But the last Goemon game ever made is
The
a DS
DS one.
title. Yeah, that's done in beautiful watercolors. It almost looks like Okami. So
No
really great
translation,
styling.
though.
No translation though.
Incredibly unfortunate. That game looks incredible.
Yeah. Now Goemon is living and dying in sweaty Japanese salarymen's pockets on pachinko machines. It sucks.
Patchy slot.
But there was a Mii costume in Smash Ultimate for Goemon. So people are it's still generally in the cultural ethos. So if I can resurrect a single series, this is gonna be it. Let's go. Let's fucking go. So yeah, just hard recommend. That's all I'll say is hard recommend. These games will charm the pants off you.
In what order should I play the Super Famicom games?
I think 2, 3, 4. I think that's completely fair. If you want to do one, you can certainly skip one. It's just so different in flavor. I think it's so different. It's good in its sound game design. It's just not the heart. The heart of Ganbare Goemon starts at 2 for sure.
Yeah, and you said 1 was hard, so I don't know if I want to fucking beat my head up against the wall versus just enjoy the flavor of the series.
Yeah, for sure. Basically, it's a hard Super Famicom game that has Goemon as the protagonist. Ganbare Goemon 2 is where the music shines and the visuals shine, and it's the same thing as Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. So just nothing but love for this series. It's silly, it's fun, it's whimsical, and I want way more of it. Fantastic. So that's it for my rant. Any closing thoughts on Ganbare Goemon?
Bring it back, Konami. Get your shit together.
Get it together.
Yeah, for real. Tragic.
So we're going to end the discussion as we always do, and talking about Happy Midnight's Mantle of Happy Masterpieces. And I'm seeing it in the tea leaves, but let's go discussion order here. Colin, does Nier Replicant belong in Happy Midnight's Mantle of Happy Masterpieces? What do you think, bro?
Without a doubt, not a moment of hesitation. It's got the best soundtrack of all time. It's got the best voice acting performance of all time. It's in my personal top 10. I bet it's in John's top 10 all time.
Certainly. Truly,
truly special game. Can't recommend it enough. Be aware if you're super gameplay-oriented gamer, you might not like it as much, but story vibes and all that is beyond worth it.
Hell yeah, dude. Welcome, Nier, to the Mantle of Happy Masterpieces, because it is, in fact, a happy masterpiece. Keaton, Risk of Rain 2. Does it belong in Happy Midnight's Mantle of Happy Masterpieces? What do you think?
This one is kind of tough because, like I said, I've technically beaten this game on easy mode, but I feel like I'm kind of still just getting started with my journey with this game. And it's going to continue to grow and evolve. They're still actively developing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say right now I'm gonna hold off on giving it the thumbs up, but I could definitely see this, growing to become a beloved game for me that I would put on there. So tentatively no.
Tentatively no. Yeah, but hold on to your butts for the future. Johnny, does any of the Ganbare Goemon games belong in Happy Midnight's Mantle of Happy Masterpieces? Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, absolutely.
Let's go.
It deserves the throne.
Here to hear, better than Ocarina of Time.
Yeah,
you heard it here.
It's not only such a nostalgic game for me, but I do think that it is something truly and utterly special. So if you haven't and you have the taste for going back in time a little bit, Mystical Ninja starring Goemon for the N64 is unlike anything else you will play on that system. It is great. So check it out. Seriously, check it out. That's going to be it for us. Hey, thank you so much for listening. We're loving doing this. We're loving doing this so much. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks with some more games to talk about. So please check it out. We currently have 99 subscribers on YouTube, so please hit the subscribe button.
One more.
Just do it.
Just fucking do it. Come on.
Please do it. Come on.
I'm paying for a domain to redirect to the YouTube, and I won't have to do that anymore if you just fucking subscribe.
One of you.
Come on.
Hey, thanks for listening. Seriously, we seriously appreciate you, and we will see you next time.
Take a shower. Happy midnight.
Happy midnight, fam.
Happy midnight.